Chapter 147. Song Qing-shu had never expected that the subordinate he had sent to keep an eye on him would come back in such a state. After being hit by a tricycle truck, being chased for 8 whole blocks while suffering from a concussion, and finally falling off the highway due to intermittent brain shock, Song Qing-shu felt that the plot was basically, the Grim Reaper is coming. This tall man in a suit was called Fang Yan, and Xiaofan had been working with Song Qing-shu for a long time. Therefore, after Song Qing-shu learned that Xiaofan was injured, he immediately used his connections to arrange surgery for Xiaofan as soon as possible. He directly skipped the tedious process of registering. Sometimes, saving time could really save a life. If he had waited for another registration time, Xiaofan might really have died. But even so, Xiaofan still missed the golden treatment time. After the expert meeting, Song Qing-shu stood at the door and waited for Director Li to appear. Several old experts followed behind Director Li, shaking their heads and frowning as they sighed. After the discussion in the meeting just now, they hadn't come up with an effective way to treat the man in the suit, Fang Yan. As soon as he saw Director Li, Song Qing-shu immediately went up to him and held his hand tightly. "Hello, Director Li. Is there any new discussion?" Director Li shook his head regretfully. "Well, not at the moment. To be honest, Mr. Fang's mental disorder is more serious than we thought. He's infinitely close to a vegetable." Infinitely close to a vegetable. Does that mean he hasn't completely reached the stage of a vegetable? Doesn't that mean he can still be saved? "Mr. Song, you've misunderstood." Director Li looked at his watch and then looked at Song Qing-shu seriously. "What I mean is, Mr. Fang still needs an expert's diagnosis. Just a minute ago, the expert already confirmed it. Now, Mr. Fang is already a vegetable." Song Qing-shu. "Is there no other way? Acupuncture with golden needles. Medicinal bath treatment. Money isn't a problem." Director Li. "Mr. Song, you have to understand that the nerves in the brain are quite complicated. Perhaps cultivators can use some methods to speed up the recovery of internal organs and skin injuries. However, brain problems, especially involving nerves, are the same for cultivators and ordinary people. Once injured, it's very difficult to cure. Acupuncture with golden needles and medicinal bath treatment, these common folk remedies in cultivation novels, how can they work?" Song Qing-shu. Director Li. "Once, the hospital sent a nascent soul stage patient with cerebral hemorrhage. Our hospital prepared to perform a craniotomy on him. The operation lasted for 8 hours, but in the end, the patient's skull wasn't even cut open." Song Qing-shu. Just like that, after the great sage, the second sage, and the defected third sage, Song Qing-shu once again lost a trusted general who could fight. Although Xiaofan was only an assistant, he had indeed helped Song Qing-shu solve many of his problems. Most importantly, even if Song Qing-shu wanted to take revenge, he felt powerless. Because that tricycle belonged to grenade-throwing senior immortal and that teenager. Why? Why did it have to be these two? Song Qing-shu felt that he really shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke him. Xiaofan wouldn't have ended up like this if he hadn't directed this. After a busy morning in the secondary hospital, Song Qing-shu returned to the office in the afternoon to find that he still had a lot of work to do. He received a text message on his watch. It was from the lady of the castle, who was the Lord's personal secretary and had been with him for many years. As long as it was something she didn't really want to manage, be it big or small, she would handle it. But it was worth mentioning that this lady of the castle was very mysterious. Even Song Qing-shu, a veteran employee of Mo Immortal Castle for many years, had never seen her face. She was a mysterious woman. The only thing Song Qing-shu knew about the lady of the castle was that she was very strong. Far stronger than he was. Song Qing-shu even felt that even the 10 saints might not be this lady's match. When Song Qing-shu saw the text message from the lady of the castle, his mood was actually very complicated. Since Third Sage's defection, the lord of the castle had been very dissatisfied with his work. Previously, he would still communicate with the lord on the phone, but recently, he had left everything to the lady to handle. Song Qing-shu knew that he was now in a very dangerous situation, because in Mo Immortal Castle, once you were deemed to be a worthless person, the usual outcome was death. Over the years, Song Qing-shu had helped the castle deal with some worthless people. But he had never thought that one day, he would face the same problem as these people. Working in Mo Immortal Castle didn't give him any face. Value was everything. The lord of the castle never liked to do business at a loss. Somewhat fearful, he opened the text message from the lady of the castle. The content of the message was very simple. The lady was asking about the trial of immortal water. This was the potion that had caused the 3 Foundation Establishment high school students to mutate and become delirious. Song Qing-shu was well aware that this was his last chance. No matter what, he had to do it beautifully. After thinking about how to phrase his words, Song Qing-shu quickly replied, "Don't worry, lady. Everything has been arranged. I've already ordered people to secretly promote the trial of immortal water." Less than a few microseconds after sending the message, the lady instantly replied with the speed of her hand, which she had been single for several thousand years. "That's good. This time, the immortal water has been modified to reduce the risk of mutation. However, we still need to find people to conduct human experiments. How are the 3 students who had problems with their bodies?" Song Qing-shu thought for a while, but in the end didn't reveal the matter of grenade-throwing senior immortal and that youngster. He replied, "Don't worry, lady. I've given them hush money and arranged for them to stay in a separate ward in the hospital. Nothing will get out." The lady quickly replied, "I know everything you're doing now. Yesterday, someone already came to the hospital to find out about the 3 students, right?" When Song Qing-shu saw the message, he couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. The lady then sent another message. "You don't need to be nervous. As long as this matter hasn't been exposed by the media, you won't be in danger for the time being. If you do a good job with the trial of immortal water, you can completely make up for your previous mistakes. The lord of the castle still believes in you, so he hasn't given up on you right away." Song Qing-shu: "Thank you, lady. I've already contacted a school to promote immortal water as an educational institution." The lady: "No need to thank me." "That's right. What's the name of this school? You can find someone to test it first, in case something goes wrong." Chapter 148. It was June 1st on Tuesday in the 6th week of the semester. It happened to be Children's Day. When Wang Ling went to school, he noticed that there were a lot more naughty kids on the streets because of the holiday. When he came to class in the morning, Master of Dopey had already finished copying his homework. Sitting there, he pretended to stroke his beard as he sighed about how time waited for no man. I'm old. I'm old. I don't even have Children's Day anymore. Do you know, according to the latest age classification table issued by the Cultivation United Nations, people at our age are already having a midlife crisis. Speaking up to this point, Super Chen inexplicably started to feel a little sad. He felt that he actually looked quite sunny and not very old-fashioned. Because he was addicted to fitness and sports every day, he had a body full of muscles that boys were envious of. Sexy muscles and lines would add points to a boy's temperament. But even so, when he had been on the subway this morning, a cute little boy of 4 or 5 years old had still called him Uncle. 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 At that time, Super Chen's heart had felt like it had been struck by lightning. His entire body had been electrocuted. This feeling was as bad as your girlfriend grabbing your lapel and seriously asking you who you should save first if you and your mom fell into the water at the same time. Uncle my ass. At the very least, you should call him Big Brother. But after Super Chen reacted, he felt that this analogy wasn't very appropriate. Because he didn't have a girlfriend. And so, just like that, Super Chen and Master of Dopey, the duo who thought they were already doddering in their midlife crisis, were depressed over this matter for the whole morning. Speaking of Super Chen's muscles, Wang Ling also quietly rubbed his little belly. It was soft and very bouncy. Wang Ling analyzed the reason for his bulging belly. The main reason was that the limited edition beef ramen-flavored crispy noodle snacks that the old man had brought back from south of Tianhe had been too delicious. One night, he couldn't help but eat a box of them. And this was the price he had to pay for not having restraint. But a lot of young people nowadays didn't know how to control themselves. Wang Ling felt that he was actually a typical example. He didn't need to eat, but there were times when he was greedy. Most people wouldn't understand the world of a foodie. But Wang Ling didn't have to worry about gaining weight. He could just get rid of the extra flesh on his body when he got home. This was the reason why Wang Ling couldn't get fat. Gaining weight was something that couldn't be stopped. Sometimes if one wasn't careful, one would grow fat. Wang Ling had always felt that there were two kinds of people at school who were very similar and could both be categorized as bitches. The first was a straight A student who said that he had failed the exam after the exam. And the second was the skinny guy who bragged every day that he wouldn't get fat no matter how much he ate. At 2:00 in the afternoon, it was supposed to be time for the physical education class. Everyone was ready to rush to the sports field to take a breath of fresh air. However, the PE teacher appeared at the door of the class. Judging from his bitter expression, everyone immediately knew that today's PE class would most likely be cancelled again. Teacher Pan's chemistry class, Teacher Han Mimi's English class, Teacher Lu Ziming's mathematics class. No one dared to hog these classes. Whenever there was a school anniversary event, most of the time was taken up by PE class. Therefore, in school, the first unlucky person would definitely be the physical education teacher. The physical education teacher, Yi Han, has a head of naturally curly blonde hair, and looks rather tall and sturdy. Furthermore, through reading his memories, Wang Ling knew that Teacher Yi had a special hobby. He liked to clamp a towel between his legs and repeatedly rub it back and forth with each hand. It was said that this move was the famous move of the legendary father of sports philosophy, Harrington, which had the miraculous effect of strengthening muscles and bones and maintaining blood flow. Teacher Yi usually kept a low profile at school. He never competed with other teachers for class. As long as there was a need for physical education, he was the right person to look for. This was the so-called honest people are always easy to bully. Number 60 High School had accepted Mo Immortal Castle's advertisement, and Headmaster Chen had given him the task of having each teacher in charge play a lecture video to promote Mo Immortal Castle in class. Given Teacher Pan's personality, of course she wouldn't be willing to take up Wang Ling's class time. So, Teacher Yi was out of luck. Standing on the dais, Teacher Yi helplessly put down the blue notebook in his hand. He had originally planned to test the children in class today for a 1-kilometer run. If they couldn't run within 10 seconds, they would all fail. There were only 15 students in Grade 1, Class 3, so it wouldn't take a lot of time to test all of them. However, Teacher Pan still found him and asked him to play an educational lecture video provided by Mo Immortal Castle in PE class. Students, you have to understand me. I'm also very helpless. While Teacher Yi complained on the dais, the boys complained under the dais. Only Li Xianjing took the opportunity to take out his homework with an indifferent expression on his face and quickly started to do it. This was the reason why Li Xianjing didn't bring his homework home after school, because he would finish all of it in class. Teacher Yi used the classroom projector to play Mo Immortal Castle's so-called educational video, which was similar to an educational lecture. All the students in the elite class were already well aware of the routine of this kind of private education organization program. If this kind of program was put in the middle of the program or in the last few minutes, it would definitely start to promote the organization's peripheral products. As expected, when the program came to an end, the female host on the dais suddenly said in a clear voice, "Next, let's welcome the study leader from Mo Immortal Castle with a round of applause to recommend a learning aid product to us." A fatty with a 5-stripe logo on his shoulder appeared on the screen. In terms of physique alone, he was thicker than Master of Dopey. He didn't look very handsome, but everyone recognized him. This was the top scorer in last year's college entrance examination, Tan Jiaming, who had directly entered a key cultivation university 211 with a super high score of 197,000. People gave him the nickname, 5-Stripe Leader. At that time, the news media had all hissed because this person had directly received a government subsidy of 3 super panacea pills. 3 whole super panacea pills. This was absolutely a godlike subsidy. Furthermore, it was said that this leader had only taken one of them, and had already broken through to the middle golden core stage. Standing on the dais, the leader shared his so-called secret to learning. Then, with a flash of spirit light, a bottle of potion appeared in his hand. He pinched it between 2 fingers and made a big peace sign with the camera. "This, Mo Immortal Water. This is my secret to learning." Wang Ling immediately knew that this guy was definitely that mutated potion. When Wang Ling looked up, he was astonished to find that this potion had actually been improved. It had clearly been black before, but now it was actually rainbow-colored. And the most frightening thing was that right after the leader's promotion, the female host on the dais presented a joint appraisal certificate from 4 experts. These were the legendary 4 leading figures in the healthcare industry. Miracle Dr. 100 Changes Lu Hongbin, Diabetes Divine Hand Li Chiming, Supreme Rheumatism Wang Zhijin, Medicine Emperor Gao Zhenzhong with kidney deficiency. Chapter 149. It was actually quite common for educational institutions to promote healthcare products, but Wang Ling really felt that Mo Immortal Castle had come to the wrong place. They had overlooked Lotus Sunday. As the young miss of a pharmaceutical company, she was naturally very sensitive to drugs. And it wasn't uncommon to see fake healthcare products on the market nowadays. She hadn't heard of any of the 4 experts in the video advertisement, so she was a little worried. During the break between classes, Lotus Sun called Steward Lin San, Lu Hongbin, Li Chaiming, Wang Zhijin, Gao Zhenzhong. On the other end of the line, old butler Lin frowned. His expression was a little serious. Eldest miss, are you sure that these 4 people were mentioned in the video? Lotus Sun nodded. There's no mistake. Old butler Lin fell silent. These 4 people often appear on some late-night health programs, pretending to be experts. Actually, he didn't have a physician's qualification certificate. People gave me the nicknames of Eastern Medicine, Western Lunatic, Southern Virtuous, Northern Mongolia. Lotus Sun was a little anxious. Doesn't this Mo Immortal Water have no guarantee? Lin San replied. It's more than that. There must be other risks associated with this kind of product that has a false certificate. Then Uncle Lin, what should we do now? Lotus Sun asked. Lin San nodded. Don't worry, eldest Mississippi. I'll give Headmaster Chen a call right now and use my authority as the school board to ban this educational institution from selling their products in the school. It had to be said that Lin San was very efficient. As soon as the call ended, the school on the other side immediately made the relevant joint work. Song Qing-shu was anxious. He called Headmaster Chen's office. Headmaster Chen, you took our advertising fees. How can you go back on your word? Headmaster Chen had an apologetic expression on his face. We've already released the video advertisement in all the classes in the school. It's just that the board of directors of our number 60 high school doesn't think it's very reliable to sell Mo Immortal Water in school, and they're afraid of taking the risk. Do you want me to refund you the money? Song Qing-shu's expression darkened. I don't care. Give me the director's phone number. I'll call them right away. Headmaster Chen said helplessly, Mr. Song, it's better if you don't waste your energy. Our board of directors is very busy every day. You can't call them right now. They would probably have to wait in line. At this rate, it'll probably take another half a year. Song Qing-shu. Who's on the board of directors? Headmaster Chen. Oh. It's Sun Kaming, the CEO of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. His daughter is still studying here. Don't you know Mr. Song? When Song Qing-shu heard this, he felt like crying but had no tears. This school clearly had the CEO of Huaguo Water Curtain Group as a board member. But they still pretended to be poor every day. Hey, was it a demon spirit? He wanted to report someone here for cheating advertising fees. Sometimes when people were really unlucky, they couldn't even fill their teeth with cold water. Song Qing-shu had only chosen the most inconspicuous school based on the statistics of the major colleges and universities in the city bureau. God knew that the young mistress of Huaguo Water Curtain Group was studying there. Now that Mo Immortal Castle couldn't sell it at school, it could already be considered half a failure. But if he stopped now, it would mean that he had already lost. Song Qing-shu had truly experienced the castle lord's heartlessness. Over the years, many people had died in the hands of the lord of the castle and were refined into demonic ghosts as pets. Whether it was a veteran employee who had been with the company for many years or a newbie who had just joined, as long as their performance wasn't up to standard and they didn't make any achievements, the only fate awaiting them in Mo Immortal Castle was death. However, Song Qing-shu didn't want to resign himself to his fate. He decided to run away before the mission was declared a complete failure. In a high-end luxury apartment in Songhai City, Song Qing-shu was sorting out his belongings. He had used a forged ID card to buy a plane ticket, and was going abroad to hide for a while. Since Song Qing-shu still hadn't been removed from his position, it wouldn't be difficult for him to create a fake identity. Furthermore, based on what he had learned over the years, Mo Immortal Castle's current strength wouldn't be enough to chase him abroad. As long as everything went smoothly, Song Qing-shu felt that his escape plan had an 80% chance of succeeding. Song Qing-shu checked the briefcase for the last time and confirmed that he had brought all the fake documents to hide his true identity. Then, he separated all the fake documents into a wallet. Although they were all fake IDs, they were enough to pass them off as genuine. He had already gotten the help of the brother in the City Cultivation Police's technical department to change his online identity information, so it would be foolproof even if he went online to verify his identity. There were really too many things in the apartment, and because he was pressed for time, Song Qing-shu couldn't take everything with him. But he didn't have to worry about not being able to fit them all. It was much easier for cultivators to run away than for ordinary people, and an ordinary spatial magic treasure could take care of everything. In addition to the leather wallet full of fake IDs, Song Qing-shu's suitcase now contained clothes, magic treasures, and some of his treasured elixirs. Song Qing-shu was sure that after the lord of the castle found out that he had run away, the first thing he would do would be to block all the bank accounts under his name. Furthermore, withdrawing a large amount of cash from the bank in a short period of time would raise suspicions. So after careful consideration, Song Qing-shu decided to leave with the magic treasures and elixirs. After he left the country, he could sell some of the magic treasures that he had left and used for a considerable amount of money. Everything was ready. Carrying a small briefcase, Song Qing-shu had just opened the door of the apartment when he saw a tall woman in a black jacket and sunglasses with long hair down to her waist standing in the doorway. The moment she saw Song Qing-shu, the corners of her mouth curled into a sneer. "Mr. Song Qing-shu, sure enough, you still want to run away. You are." Song Qing-shu was stunned. This woman had to be an assassin sent by the lord or the lady. "I'm Azwa. I work for the lady of the castle. The lady already knew that you would run away." As this Miss Azwa spoke, she played lightly with her newly manicured nails. "Do you think you can fool the lady of the castle with this little trick of yours? There have been too many people who have run away over the years, and you and I can't kill them all." Song Qing-shu instantly broke out in a cold sweat. He could feel that this woman was very strong. At the very least, she was at the soul formation stage. She was more than enough to kill him. "Miss Azwa, please let me go. Whatever you want, I can give it to you." Song Qing-shu hugged his briefcase and trembled as he spoke. He was afraid in his heart, but he also sighed and sighed with emotion. In all the years he had held a high position in Mo Immortal Castle, when had he ever been so submissive? Who would have thought that he would actually be reduced to this point today? "What do you think you can give me? Can't the lord and lady satisfy me?" Miss Azwa spread open her slender fingers, and Song Qing-shu saw her blood-red nails emit a faint golden light. This woman wasn't carrying any magic treasures or weapons. She had actually refined her nails into magic treasures. "My nails are as powerful as a 7th-class holy weapon." The woman slowly leaned over, the layer of golden light on her nails surging even more violently as she stared fixedly at Song Qing-shu under her sunglasses. A 7th-class holy weapon. Song Qing-shu was utterly stupefied. A 9th-class holy weapon could easily injure anyone below the soul formation stage. If these nails with the power of a 7th-class holy weapon scratched him, he would definitely die. Whoosh! Azwa brandished her nails and directly grabbed at Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu closed his eyes tightly. That grab went straight through his briefcase, leaving 5 deep holes in it. "Don't worry, you won't feel any pain." However, after Miss Azwa's nails entered the briefcase, they seemed to be stopped by something and couldn't go any further. "What's going on?" She struggled with all her might. Then there was a crack. She was horrified to find that her nails had actually been broken. Then, a huge force came from Song Qing-shu's small briefcase, and Miss Azwa was actually sent flying and crashed into the wall behind her. The incredible impact caused Azwa to spit out a mouthful of blood, and she stared at Song Qing-shu in disbelief. What on earth is inside? Song Qing-shu quickly opened the briefcase to check. Very quickly, he found a pair of glowing long johns. Holding them up with both hands, Song Qing-shu had a stunned expression on his face, because he had brought these long johns with him from the Wang family's small villa. He had been too anxious when he had been tidying up his clothes before, so he had put these long johns in as well. Chapter 150. At the elevator door on the 17th floor of the luxury apartment, Azwa leaned against the wall, gritting her teeth in pain. She hadn't expected Song Qing-shu's briefcase to have such a powerful magic weapon. Not only had it blocked her attack, but it had also doubled the force back at her. The backlash just now had directly broken 2 of her ribs and seemed to have a slight concussion. She felt dizzy. What kind of magic weapon is this? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and pinched the glowing long johns as he looked at Azwa, shivering. It's long johns. Azwa. Then, Song Qingshu glanced at the logo and immediately realized that this pair of long johns was actually made by Nokia. No wonder it was so hard. Do you think you can escape? Azwa clutched her chest. A few years ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator at the same realm as you. He thought himself clever and tried to fake his death to seize a body again. But unfortunately, he was branded by the lord of the castle. As long as he was branded, the possession spell wouldn't be able to proceed smoothly. Once you enter Mo Immortal Castle, everyone will be branded. You can't escape. Song Qingshu frowned and lowered his head to look at the long johns in his hands. He had brought these long johns from that family's villa in the wilderness. At that time, his subordinate had been so scared by the owner's terrifying spiritual pressure that he had peed himself, so the kind owner had given him a pair of long johns for him to change into. After that, he had run into that great death-courting senior outside the villa, and in the end, he had also peed himself. Thus, the long johns had ended up in his hands. At that moment, Song Qingshu lowered his head in deep thought. He was surprised to find that the source of all his failures seemed to have started from that unremarkable little villa. Furthermore, that great death-courting senior had a close relationship with that family. Song Qingshu was increasingly convinced that the owner of this villa was no ordinary person. If even a pair of long johns could be refined into a magic weapon and burst forth with such astonishing power, then wouldn't stealing a kitchen knife from inside be able to split the world? Miss Azwa, since you're already injured, I think it's better for you to hurry back and recuperate. We'll never meet again. Song Qingshu gripped the long johns tightly, then grabbed the briefcase with 5 small holes in it and turned to head down the stairs. Even though Miss Azwa was injured, Song Qingshu didn't think he could kill her. This was the lady of the castle's right-hand man. Who knew what kind of magic treasure the other party would take out? But just as Song Qingshu was about to open the door and wave goodbye, Miss Azwa suddenly clutched her chest and slowly stood up from the ground. You want to run? At the crucial moment, Azwa didn't hesitate to take out a multicolored stone the size of a cobblestone. Spirit energy surged out of the stone and a force separated from it. Song Qingshu found that he couldn't move forward. Wuji stone? Song Qingshu recognized the stone at a glance. This Wuji stone is a magic treasure specially developed by the castle lord. You have the mark of the castle lord on you, so it's impossible for you to escape the punishment of the Wuji stone. I was worried that something might go wrong, so I borrowed it from the lady of the castle. Azwa had never expected to use the Wuji stone to detain someone. In her opinion, dealing with this Song Qingshu would be a piece of cake. This Wuji stone was like a super strong magnet that firmly latched onto Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu did his best to resist this force, but he couldn't take another step forward. He was just a little bit away from the corridor. Just a little bit more. He would be able to escape this demoness grasp. On the other side, Azwa took advantage of the Wuji stone's pull to slowly approach Song Qingshu's back. I told you you can't escape. In the previous attack, the nails on Azwa's right hand had been completely broken. But she still had her left hand. I don't know how you refined this magic treasure in the shape of long johns, but this time, I'll go all out. I'll use all my strength to send you to the netherworld. Azwa wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Without the slightest bit of mercy, she endured the pain of her broken ribs and stretched out her claws to grab Song Qingshu. The nails on her left hand glowed with a faint golden light, and the strength of this grab was enough to pierce through Song Qingshu's skin. Although Song Qingshu really wanted to complain, this wasn't *** king magic treasure in the shape of long johns at all. This was a real pair of long johns. But seeing the woman's merciless attack, Song Qingshu was also angry. Fuck. I'm not running anymore. He had thoroughly experienced the Wuji stone's power. As long as he had the lord of the castle's brand on him, he wouldn't be able to escape after taking out the Wuji stone. But this Wuji stone could only restrict his advance like a magnet, and couldn't truly lock him in place. Begging for mercy was useless, and running wasn't an option. Song Qingshu could only grit his teeth and look at the woman in front of him. He roared like a man. I'll fight you to the death. This time, Ozwa's strength was clearly much fiercer than before, and the strong wind carried destructive power. It was an ordinary claw strike without any magical embellishments, and all the glass on this floor was instantly shattered by the strong wind. Song Qing-shu felt as if his face was no longer his own. There was a burning sensation of pain, and his skin was trembling like a ghost, and all he could do was raise his glowing long johns at this critical moment and shiver uncontrollably. Boom! There was a loud explosion on the 17th floor. Smoke and dust suddenly rose as Ozwa's claw struck the long johns with all her might. But this time, it only created a series of sparks. Instead, the strong toughness of the long johns caused the attack to rebound. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The woman was sent flying by this force. Song Qing-shu looked at the human-shaped hole in the 17th floor's wall, his heart still pounding with fear. After the chaotic battle, the dust seemed to have settled, and the entire 17th floor had suffered great destruction as if it had been hit by the apocalypse. Luckily, there was only one resident on each floor of this luxury apartment. Otherwise Song Qing-shu really couldn't imagine how many innocent people would be affected. Downstairs! What are you yelling for? How uncultured! Everyone has to go to work tomorrow. I've already called the property management. Just you wait. The resident upstairs was a golden core cultivator, and he yelled at the top of his lungs. Song Qing-shu snapped out of his daze, and realized that it was time to escape. He hurriedly grabbed his briefcase and the protective long johns and fled down the stairs. On the other side, Ozwa, the killer subordinate whom the lady of the castle had sent, had suffered a huge backlash, and was sent flying a full kilometer out of the building by a blast of air. In the end, she turned into a shooting star and crashed into the green belt near the highway. Ozwa had died. Her ribs were broken, her hands were crushed, her fingernails were all broken, and she was bleeding profusely. But she wasn't dead, and was only in shock. That pair of long johns had been enchanted by Wang Ling, and it had survived 2 consecutive backlashes. Chapter 151. It was hard to imagine how ferocious a soul formation cultivator's strength must have been to directly go into shock after suffering 2 backlashes. In the evening, Director Li received another call from his leader. He would continue to deal with a patient who was on the Green Rescue Channel. On the way, Director Li's assistant was reporting the situation to him. How's the patient's condition now? Initial diagnosis is that it's shock caused by a concussion. Director Li was startled. How could it be another F***king concussion? Were cultivators' brains so fragile nowadays? What caused it? According to surveillance footage from Haixing Road, the cultivation police station found that the patient fell from the sky and hit the green belt. The cause is still under investigation. The assistant replied, but initial diagnosis is that the patient's injuries have nothing to do with the fall, and her concussion had already formed before the fall. The cultivation police station has sent Officer Wang, who is very experienced in criminal investigation. Based on his assessment, he believes that the real cause of the patient's injuries is related to the explosion in that high-end apartment building a kilometer away. Director Li nodded. I understand. I'm on my way there now. Follow up on the situation, and once you understand the cause of the patient's injuries, be sure to let me know right away. The city police station has given me another order to save this person's life at all costs. The assistant. Don't worry, Director. Officer Wang is very experienced, and he's doing his best to investigate the case. He's analyzing the cause of the case. Just now, he finished watching an entire season of Detective Conan. For some reason, Director Li wanted to cry but had no tears. Sure enough, studying medicine couldn't save a cultivator. At around 10 o'clock that night, a person who shouldn't have been there appeared outside the Wang family's small villa. Song Qing-shu stood at the entrance of the villa with a briefcase with 5 holes in his left hand and a pair of long johns tightly clenched in his right hand. According to Song Qing-shu's original plan, he should have taken a supersonic plane to Mishio Nation. But at the last moment, Song Qing-shu realized that he had chickened out. He had fled Mo Immortal Castle in an attempt to break away from the organization, and had even seriously injured the lady's right-hand man, Ozwa. The lady would definitely mobilize all her forces to hunt him down and kill him. Song Qing-shu felt that he had no way out. Even if he escaped abroad now, it was still very unsafe. What should I do? Song Qing-shu pondered for a long time in the small garden downstairs of the apartment complex, quietly reviewing his life. He felt that everything he had done since he was young had not been smooth sailing. Once, he deliberately tricked people in a ranked match. In the end, he met a youth with explosive hand speed. That person called himself Yi Xiao and used a hero to smash 5 people on the other side. He killed the other side more than 30 times in a row, and in the end, the other side surrendered. Once again, he snatched a lollipop from a child at home, only to be beaten up instead. Not only did that child say that he was a disciple of Shaolin Temple, that he had learned Qigong from Qigong master Wang Lin, and that he had learned the S-shaped snakeskin movement from the talk show actor Bobo. Another time, he peeped at a young lady bathing, and was almost caught and beaten into a muscle by her boyfriend. That person claimed to be the campus belle's personal expert, and that he had countless girlfriends, all of whom he King got along with. While Song Qing-shu was thinking about life, the sirens of the cultivation police car and the fire department's rescue vehicle, accompanied by a dazzling red warning light, swaggered through the entrance of the residential area. In that moment, it was as if a drop of glycerin had been poured into Song Qing-shu's brain, and he instantly figured it out. Now that things had come to this, he had nowhere to go. If he had to find a way out, the Wang family's small villa was his only way out. But what reason did he have to look for the seniors in this villa? Song Qing-shu looked at the long johns in his hand, which had saved his life twice, and clenched his teeth. So now, he stood at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. It was past 10 o'clock, but no one was asleep in the Wang family's small villa. Mother Wang was upstairs brushing up on her face and putting on a face mask, while Father Wang was still working hard for his readers in the study. Downstairs, the old man was watching a new large-scale ethical drama called Take Me Along, Old Driver. This drama told the story of a disabled but strong-willed retired driver who, in order to realize his dream of becoming a champion driver, took his 2 daughters racing on Mount Xiaoming, and in the end trained them to become champion drivers. The old man was lost in the drama when the villa's doorbell suddenly rang. He was old and a little hard of hearing, and only came back to his senses after the doorbell rang for a while. At the same time, Wang Ling, who was on the 2nd floor, also looked down. "Who is it?" With his hands behind his back, the old man strolled over unhurriedly. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a man standing at the entrance, looking a little down and out. Judging from his appearance, the man was already in his 30s. He looked a little haggard, had a scraggly beard, and looked a little slovenly. The old man narrowed his eyes. "You are?" Song Qing-shu probed him with his spiritual senses, and found that the old man standing in front of him seemed to be just an ordinary old man without any spirit energy to speak of. Even so, Song Qing-shu still didn't dare be the slightest bit negligent. What if the other party was deliberately hiding his strength? "Senior." He looked at the old man timidly, and after a moment, he finally took a deep breath. As if summoning up his courage, he looked at the old man in front of him and held up the long johns with both hands. "I'm here to return the long johns." Old man Wang was blank for a moment, and then realized that the long johns really did belong to him. This was because old Master Shen had bought these long johns from the textile market back then. During the mass sale, old Master Shen had bought dozens of them at once. He could tell at a glance that they were familiar to him. "They're my long johns." The old man nodded, then looked at Song Qing-shu and asked, "Do you have a problem?" Even though it had been almost an hour since Ozwa's assassination attempt, Song Qing-shu's hands were still trembling. He was a little speechless, and didn't know what to say. When all was said and done, the old man was an experienced veteran. When he was young, he had seen all kinds of people. He had also been a chef for decades, and had seen all kinds of diners. Like a roundworm, the old man knew what those diners were thinking when they frowned. The old man could tell that Song Qing-shu's real purpose wasn't as simple as returning the long johns. He probably had something else to ask of him. Furthermore, it was already so late, so it was obviously a little unusual for him to come knocking at this time. Chapter 152. Song Qing-shu tiptoed through the door, feeling a little guilty. After all, in order to fight for the stone ghost mask a few times in the past, he had even sent his subordinates to forcefully snatch it from them. But now, Song Qing-shu had completely thought it through. The strength of this family was already not something he could go against. A pair of long johns had been able to send the lady of the castle's capable subordinate, Azwa, flying with a backlash on the spot. How terrifyingly strong was this senior who could refine such a magic treasure? The old man poured Song Qingshu a glass of water, put it on the coffee table, and pushed it in front of him. Do you have anything to say? The old man had always been an easygoing person. His eyes would narrow into slits when he smiled in particular, making him look very benevolent. However, Song Qingshu didn't dare let down his guard in the Wang family's small villa. Although he hadn't sensed the slightest trace of spirit energy from the old man, there was a good saying, those with squinting eyes were monsters. Who knew whether this great senior was testing him or not? And this glass of water. Could he drink it? Should he drink it? Or was this a test from the senior? Song Qingshu stared at the glass of water, lost in endless thought. This scene was exactly the same as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression at the dinner table back then, wondering whether he should eat the broccoli that Grandfather Wang had picked out for him or not. Song Qingshu realized that coming to the Wang family's small villa was a little bad. He kept feeling like someone was staring at him from behind. He didn't understand why this villa, which clearly looked ordinary and didn't even have a spirit array to decorate it, gave off such an oppressive feeling that came from the depths of one's soul. After 10 minutes of silence, Song Qingshu felt like a child who had been caught copying homework by the class teacher in the morning, and finally confessed everything in front of the old man. Because Song Qingshu talked a lot, he almost told the whole story to the old master. The old man was getting on in years, and couldn't react for a moment. After sorting out his thoughts with great effort, he replied unhurriedly, "You were the one who wanted to buy that mask in the first place? But that mask was taken away by Little Lei." Little Lei? Song Qingshu felt like his 3 views had been overturned. Nowadays, how many people would dare call that great death-courting senior that? Suddenly, Song Qingshu felt even more respect for Old Man Wang. Even if he carefully searched the old man's body, he still couldn't find any spiritual power. However, this old man was already a great senior in his heart. Moreover, Song Qingshu had no doubt that this old man was a living fossil-level figure. Because you didn't buy the mask for your boss, now your boss wants to kill you. Is that what you mean? The old man sighed. He felt that young people nowadays were too noisy. It was just a mask. It was not a big deal. It was all about fighting and killing. But the old man felt that he didn't have the ability to help Song Qingshu in this matter. After thinking for a bit, he stretched out his leg and lightly scraped Loopy Toad's little butt, intending to have Loopy Toad call Wang Ling down. Loopy Toad's rest had been disturbed, and it was a little grumpy. Song Qingshu glanced at the Akita with strange fur. He thought it was just a domesticated pet, but when it was kicked up by the old man, it glared at him angrily. Song Qingshu felt like he had seen this look somewhere before. This definitely wasn't an ordinary dog. For some reason, the moment he met the dog's eyes, Song Qingshu saw a demon king standing on top of a cliff, leading thousands of demons. The demon king stood there, his eyes sharp and full of vigor. With a flip of his hand, he could destroy heaven and earth. Song Qingshu was dazed. Was he imagining things? The old man, our Wang Ling, brought this dog back from school. The school leaders came and forbade us from raising it. But this little guy is very protective of its owner and is very easy to raise. I see. Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief at the old man's explanation. May I ask, Senior, who is Wang Ling? Wang Ling is my grandson. My grandson is still in high school. Still in high school? Song Qingshu felt that his 3 views had been refreshed. What kind of family was this? Song Qingshu. Which high school is it? The old man. Number 60 High School. Song Qingshu. Under normal circumstances, the old man would get excited at the mention of his grandson. The pride and arrogance of the older generation toward their grandchildren was indescribable. But he couldn't say too much to Song Qingshu. The old man had never been willing to get involved in matters between cultivators. Being able to sit here and listen to Song Qingshu ramble on for so long was purely because the old man was displaying his humanitarian spirit as a resident committee grandpa. If it was a quarrel between a couple, the old man felt that he might be able to mediate on behalf of Bai Wanqing, but when it came to cultivation, the Wang family could only rely on Wang Ling. Actually, while he was still on the 2nd floor, Wang Ling had already heard Song Qingshu complaining to the old man. He was now being hunted down by Mo Immortal Castle, and even if he escaped abroad, he might not be able to protect himself, so he could only come to the Wang family for help. Logically speaking, Wang Ling didn't want to get involved at all, but just as he was about to deal with it coldly, his damn eyelid started to twitch wildly again. It had been a long time since his eyelid gave him a warning. If he ignored this matter, the outcome would be even worse. After deep contemplation, Wang Ling slowly walked downstairs. He was still wearing big white bunny pajamas, and the soft adorable clothes and that unsmiling, expressionless face formed a strong contrast. When Wang Ling went downstairs, the old man had already returned to his side to continue watching his drama, leaving Song Qing-shu alone. Song Qing-shu was a little nervous and a little confused. He didn't know why this great senior had pushed this matter onto his grandson, who was still in high school. But when he saw Wang Ling approach him in pajamas, which contrasted greatly with his appearance, Song Qing-shu was completely stupefied. Because even if the person in front of him turned to ash, he would never, ever forget him. He was certain that this was the youngster in white who had appeared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa when he and the 10 saints had gone to fight over the stone ghost mask, and who had caused Great Saint and Second Saint to die from the backlash. Not only had this youngster killed Great Saint and Second Saint, he had also incited Third Saint to defect. The most important thing was that he had a very close relationship with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. In any case, this youngster was the main culprit behind their current predicament. But Song Qing-shu had never expected that after going around in a big circle, the person he had finally found to help would actually be this youngster. Song Qing-shu felt really angry. But now, he was already at his wit's end. Apart from this youngster, no one could help him. On the side, Loopy Toad glanced at Song Qing-shu and silently lowered its head. It then walked over to Song Qing-shu and stretched out its paw to pat his leg comfortingly. Chapter 153. He called grenade-throwing Senior Immortal over from Wenxian Garden. Song Qing-shu had come to ask for help. This matter needed to be considered at length. After receiving the message, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately galloped over on sheep. It took him less than 5 minutes to get to the Wang family's house. After grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took sheep back, he entrusted one of his little brothers who was good at upgrading immortal tools to repair the car. When he had heard that Wang Ling was looking for him that night, he had seized the opportunity to return the tricycle. When he reached the entrance, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw that the main door of the Wang family's villa was slightly ajar. Wang Ling had opened it through the air. Then, Song Qing-shu saw Great Death-courting Senior and a pink-haired lowly wearing blue lace suspenders and shorts enter the door. The little lowly looked like she was only 6 years old. Her hair was tied up in a bun and she was wearing a gray windbreaker. Her big eyes blinked as she looked around. Song Qing-shu's heart couldn't help jumping when he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal holding little Loli's hand. He had never heard that this Great Death-courting Senior had a daughter. Where had this little Loli come from? After entering, the first thing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw was Grandfather Wang watching a drama, which was the recently popular Take Me Old Driver. He did not dare to disturb the old man watching the drama, but at this moment, he had already decided that when he returned home today, he would carefully watch the drama from beginning to end. Who knows? He might be able to comprehend the mysteries of heaven. Yes, Great Senior's every action has a purpose. Leading sheep in front of Wang Ling, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was stunned when he saw Wang Ling's pajamas. Damn, Brother Ling. Aren't you a little cute today? Then, he cupped his fists in salute to Wang Ling, who was wearing big white bunny pajamas. Brother Ling, I've brought you sheep. Wang Ling stared at the little girl and raised his eyebrows. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal rubbed Lolita's little head. Brother Ling, are you relieved now? Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand and nodded. This already wasn't sheep's first time materializing. It was just that the last few times it had materialized, because of the rust and peeling paint on the tricycle, the clothes and accessories it had materialized had been too horrible to look at. Now that he had taken care of it again, it was indeed much better. Sheep pointed at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal with a face full of excitement. This uncle found someone to help me paint, wax and lubricate it. It's very comfortable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that there was something strange about this. After listening to Song Qing-shu's explanation of what had happened, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at him and laughed. It turns out you were the one who sent that bunch of people who fought us for the stone ghost mask back then. Now that he's been abandoned and is being hunted, he's come to us for help? If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Song Qing-shu sighed and revealed an expression of great bitterness and hatred. Now that things have come to this, I have no way out. I can only seek help from the two seniors. If the two seniors can help me, I can help the two seniors get what they want. Tell me about it first. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal leaned back on the sofa and hugged Sheep from behind. Sheep twisted her body with a look of disgust, struggling to free herself. I know that the seniors have been looking for information on the maker of the stone ghost mask, Song Qing-shu said as he looked at Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Hearing this, Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's eyes lit up. You have a lead? Song Qing-shu nodded solemnly. Yes. This information had been given to him by Zhou Jia, the leader of Green Gang, and was more than 90% accurate. In fact, Song Qing-shu knew that he was in no position to negotiate at all. Cultivators nowadays had all sorts of ways to extract memories, and given the strength of these two people, it would be as easy as turning over their hands to read his memories. But he wasn't stupid. Long before he had come to the Wang family's villa, he had sealed his memories with a curse. If the curse was forcibly removed, all his memories would disappear. Song Qing-shu was well aware that this was his only bargaining chip. Even so, he still couldn't guarantee that this Senior Immortal didn't have any other way to pry into his memories. After all, this was a great senior who could transform a pair of long johns into a soul formation cultivator and cause him to suffer a backlash. You're smart to use a curse to seal your memories. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's eyes twinkled as he looked at Song Qing-shu. This was the heavenly eye of a soul formation cultivator. Although it was far inferior to Wang Ling's, it wasn't hard for it to pick up some clues. But very quickly, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal frowned when he noticed a black stain on Song Qing-shu's soul, and he exclaimed, a soul brand. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had seen a lot of soul brands. The more dangerous a brand was, the darker its color would be. For example, the soul brand on Song Qing-shu's body had already F****King turned into a black fungus. Song Qing-shu lowered his head and sighed. The Lord of the Castle plants a soul brand like this on everyone who works in Mo Immortal Castle. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal cupped his chin in contemplation. There were actually a lot of ways to remove a soul brand. But Song Qing-shu's brand was already too deep, and it was very difficult to remove it with ordinary methods. The Lord of the Castle brand on Song Qing-shu's soul was like a time bomb. Not only was there a risk of its location being exposed, it was also extremely easy for the person to be remotely cursed. Brother Ling, do you have any way to remove the soul brand? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked with a frown. Wang Ling nodded, then got up and went to the bathroom on the first floor of the Wang family's small villa. He rummaged through a cupboard and took out a red bag. On the side, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu were stupefied when they saw this familiar packaging. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Brother Ling, this is? Wang Ling opened the bag. The pure white granules in the bag glowed with a golden light and gave off the fragrance of honey locust. This was a bag of mystical washing powder which he had already blessed. At the same time, a woman approached outside the Wang family's small villa. She was wearing a cheongsam and a pair of red high heels. She had followed Song Qing-shu's soul brand to this place. This is the place. Do you think the Lord of the Castle won't know if you hide here? The woman sneered. She had already smelled Song Qing-shu. Song Qing-shu, come out and die. I'm here on the lady's orders to avenge Azua. The woman didn't move, but her furious voice pierced straight into the heart and was deafening. But unfortunately, there was no reply to this voice. Damn it! Song Qing-shu, if you're willing to be a turtle and don't dare come out, this old lady will charge in. I swear, I'll kill everyone in this villa. The woman in the red cheongsam flew into a rage. Just as the woman was about to storm the villa and carry out her next move, the front door of the Wang family's small villa opened. Chapter 154. It was already close to midnight when Song Qing-shu arrived at the Wang family's house to ask for help. To be honest, Mo Immortal Castle had arrived faster than Song Qing-shu had expected. If he had arrived at the airport at this time, he would have been caught red-handed before he could even take off. Now, Song Qing-shu was a little glad that he had made the right choice. With Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and this senior white rabbit with an unfathomable realm, they would definitely be able to protect him. Song Qing-shu had given Wang Ling the nickname White Rabbit on the spot. At that moment, The big quaint pendulum clock on the first floor of the Wang family's small villa had struck 10 times, and it was exactly midnight. Wang Ling came to the door in his pajamas. The woman in the red cheongsam at the door stopped hooting and looked at Wang Ling and Song Qingshu behind him as she said coldly, "Finally willing to come out? Miss you shouldn't have come." Song Qingshu came out from behind Wang Ling. Perhaps it was because of Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal's presence, but he was a lot more confident. "You seriously injured Azwa and tried to defect from Mo Immortal Castle. This is already a capital offense," Yu roared. At the same time, the bones in her right hand cracked like a bundle of extremely tough beef tendons. They twisted at an incredible angle and finally started to spin at high speed like an electric drill. This woman had actually refined her right hand into a magic weapon. Song Qingshu was well aware that in terms of realm and overall qualities, this Yu could definitely kill him in a second in every aspect. They weren't on the same level of realm, and it would be as easy as killing a chicken or a dog for her to crush someone with a lower realm. In a normal one-on-one fight, it was impossible to kill someone with a higher realm. But Song Qingshu wasn't the least bit nervous. He slowly got into position and stretched out his hand to wave at the other party. "Make your move." Compared with Azwa, this Miss Yu's attack style was clearly more violent. The electric drill in her right hand was like a godly weapon that could split the heavens and the earth. Accompanied by a dazzling light, this Miss Yu stood up and swooped down like a fierce dragon crossing the river, swiftly launching an attack. From Azwa's fingernails to Yu's entire right hand. Even grenade-throwing senior immortal had never heard of this method of refining body parts into magic artifacts. This Yu's attack was clearly more aggressive than Azwa's. While still in the air, her right hand curled up a vast expanse of lightning and came crashing down. In the face of this lightning-toxic dragon drill, Song Qingshu's response was nothing fancy. He just crossed his arms in front of him. He couldn't even see Yu's path of attack. This was the embodiment of the gap between their realms. The woman's movements were simply too fast, and his eyesight couldn't capture them at all. In an instant, the two collided, and the surrounding airwaves roared as if they were galloping. The might of this lightning-toxic dragon drill was extraordinary. It struck Song Qingshu's crossed arms, and the enormous force directly caused the ground to shatter bit by bit. Song Qingshu's entire body was embedded into the ground like rivets. However, as the woman attacked, a golden light shone from Song Qingshu's arm. Boom! Then, the golden light on his arm exploded on the spot, and the woman's right hand was blown into a bloody mess. Her body was as light as a scarecrow as she was directly sent flying. She directly broke the thick old tree behind her and skidded along the ground for several hundred meters before she came to a stop. This scene was a little familiar. Azwa had been seriously injured by the backlash from this golden light. In contrast, apart from some dust, Song Qingshu wasn't injured in the slightest. Song Qingshu climbed out of the pit and shook off the dust on his body. He couldn't help turning his head to give Wang Ling a thumbs up and a grateful look in his eyes. "Senior, your long johns are so useful." Wang Ling. Yu's cheongsam had already been torn to shreds, and she slowly crawled up from the ground barefoot on trembling legs. Her entire right arm was rotten, and the flesh and bone were almost in a state of disintegration, dripping with blood. It was only because of the woman's realm that she had the upper hand. Otherwise, under the same circumstances, an average cultivator wouldn't have been able to endure this kind of pain and would have passed out long ago. Song Qingshu walked briskly to the woman. They were hundreds of meters apart, but it took him less than a few milliseconds to reach her. Enduring the pain, Yu glanced at Song Qingshu. "Given your realm, there's no way you could be this fast." "I used a magic treasure." Song Qingshu pointed to the ground and stuck out his big toe. Yu was stunned to realize that it was actually a pair of flip-flops. "I came to ask Senior Wang for help before, and we had a good chat at his house. I didn't expect you to suddenly attack me, and I didn't even have time to change out of my slippers," Song Qingshu said. This lady of the castle's right-hand woman, Yu, looked at this scene in disbelief. "Are you joking?" As Song Qingshu spoke, he took off his outer clothes to reveal a set of red long johns. "Look. These long johns are also from Senior's house. It was thanks to these two magic treasures that I was able to block your attack. Otherwise, I would have been dead long ago." Yu couldn't accept this outcome at all, and she directly spat out a mouthful of blood. What kind of joke was this?" Senior Wang is kind and generous, and doesn't want to cause trouble. But you've disturbed his rest time and again. Go back and tell the Lord that Senior Wang has already agreed to protect me, and tell him to be careful. If he wants to live a few more years, it's best if he doesn't cause trouble, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Wang Ling felt that after Audiobook, he had been blackmailed again. You actually dare threaten the Lord? Let me tell you, I'm already mentally prepared to come here today. Even if I can't go back, I'll kill you. The woman stared at Song Qingshu malevolently, but very quickly, she had a panicked expression on her face. What's going on? Why can't I sense your soul brand? Do you want to use the power of a curse to kill me? Song Qingshu smiled slightly. Unfortunately, before you arrived, Senior Wang had already helped me wash it off with detergent. Detergent? Ayu was dumbfounded. Logically speaking, the soul brand that the Lord had left on Song Qingshu was already irremovable. What the hell was this detergent? Could it really remove 99 kinds of stains? What a scam. Do you have any last words? Song Qingshu asked. Do you know that you're in big trouble now? Azwa and I might be working for the lady, but we were hired by her. We don't really belong to Mo Immortal Castle, but Immortal Mansion. If you dare do this, Immortal Mansion won't let you off. The woman sneered as she stared at Song Qingshu. Besides, although I'm injured, as long as those two don't make a move, do you think you, a nascent soul cultivator, can kill me? Immortal Mansion? Hearing this, Wang Ling's and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's pupils contracted slightly. Is that what you want to say? But Song Qingshu didn't care at all. After being hunted down by Mo Immortal Castle for so long, he had been on edge for so long. Now, he was enjoying the thrill of a counterattack. As he spoke, a toothpick appeared in his hand, which he had just brought out of the Wang family's small villa. Saying that, the toothpick flew out with spirit energy and directly pierced the woman's forehead. The woman died with everlasting regret. The skull of a soul formation cultivator was so hard that it didn't fear worldly objects at all. The woman had never expected that in the end, she would actually die because of a toothpick. The spirit energy attached to the toothpick exploded in the woman's head, and this tiny toothpick directly blasted a bloody hole the size of a fist in her forehead. Chapter 155. Everything came to an end for the time being. After Ayu's death, Song Qingshu finally had some breathing room for the following period of time. But the truth was that Mo Immortal Castle's revenge had just begun. Song Qingshu was well aware that the lady of the castle wouldn't let him off so easily after he had severely injured Azwa and killed Ayu. Stronger killers might appear at any time in the future, but Song Qingshu already had nothing to fear. After all, he was a man with long johns. Furthermore, the soul brand on his body had already been washed away by Senior Wang's mystical washing powder. From now on, it wouldn't be as easy for Mo Immortal Castle to find him. Since I was a child, I've never succeeded in doing anything bad. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have helped the wicked. Song Qingshu sighed in his heart as he took out a bottle of purple liquid. It was a bottle of body-dissolving liquid. Song Qingshu poured the whole bottle over Ayu's body. A pungent stench wafted over as the tattered red qipao on Ayu's body started to corrode. This qipao was originally a protective immortal treasure, but it still couldn't withstand the powerful corrosive power of the body-dissolving liquid. However, the power of this bottle of body-dissolving liquid was also limited. It only corroded the qipao, while the body remained intact. Song Qingshu was bewildered. This body-dissolving liquid could instantly melt the body of a nascent soul cultivator, but it had no effect on a soul formation cultivator. Sure enough, the gap between the nascent soul stage and the soul formation stage was just too big. Song Qingshu thought that he had been stuck at this realm for a long time, and he couldn't help feeling sad. Is there any more body-dissolving liquid? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Song Qingshu took out another bottle from his pocket. There's only one bottle left. Give it to me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took the bottle, opened the cap, and sprinkled a little white granular powder into it before shaking it evenly. Song Qingshu's face was full of amazement. Senior, may I ask, what is this powder? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Of course it's mystical washing powder from your Senior Wang's family. Song Qing Shu. After the detergent had completely dissolved in the body-dissolving fluid, grenade-throwing senior immortal poured the fluid over the body again. This time, the woman's body directly turned into steam and started to evaporate quickly. Furthermore, after the detergent dissolved in the body-dissolving fluid, the pungent stench actually disappeared, and instead, there was a pungent fragrance of soap. Song Qing Shu couldn't help giving Wang Ling a thumbs up. Senior White Rabbit King was really a god. Senior Wang, may I ask if your toilet cleaner spirit has the same effect? Could dichlorvose poison soul formation cultivators to death? Wang Ling. The three of them guarded a Yu's corpse, waiting for it to completely disappear. At the same time, along with a few flashes of light, a few objects appeared beside the corpse. These things had originally been hidden in a Yu's ear-shaped storage space. After the body-dissolving fluid had corroded the storage space, the things in the space had been scattered around the corpse like equipment dropped in a game. Perhaps because it was a temporary assassination mission, the woman did not bring much with her. Among them was a strangely shaped black weapon. It looked like a magic sword with a hilt, but the blade was very strange. It was made up of 7 black beads strung together. Song Qing Shu was stupefied as he held up this black magic sword. Are female cultivators at the soul formation stage nowadays also so insatiable that they actually carry vibrators on them? Wang Ling. Grenade-throwing senior immortal recognized this object. This is the 7-star sword. 7-star sword? I've read about it in ancient books. This is a first-class holy weapon, one of the 3 great magic treasures used by immortal Zhen Yuan back then. The other 2 are the purple gold gourd and the golden canopy rope. I never thought it would actually be on this person, said grenade-throwing senior immortal. Immortal Zhen Yuan. Song Qing Shu couldn't help shrinking his neck when he heard this name. This was a legendary figure, from the same era as the legendary devil emperor Gua Pai. Furthermore, in the earliest days, when the gate between worlds had descended on Earth and a large number of demons had invaded, it was immortal Zhen Yuan who had been the first to find a way to close the gate between worlds. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cupped his chin and said thoughtfully, Legend has it that this 7-star sword has the power to move mountains, and can mobilize the power of the earth for its own use. Song Qing Shu. Then why isn't she using it? A first-class holy weapon is already extraordinary. Generally speaking, a soul formation cultivator can only use a 4th or 5th class holy weapon, Grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, it's worth investigating why this 7-star sword appeared in this woman's possession. As they spoke, their gazes swept over the objects that had exploded on the ground. In addition to the 7-star sword, there were some elixirs of unknown uses and a bottle of purple liquid scattered around. That purple liquid was the body-dissolving liquid. According to the woman's original plan, she had obviously been to directly destroy Song Qingshu's corpse after dealing with him. Unfortunately, the woman had never expected this to be the final outcome. Scanning the area, it seemed that she didn't find anything else of value. Grenade-throwing senior immortal withdrew his gaze disinterestedly, then picked up the 7-star sword to examine it carefully. Only this 7-star sword could be considered an unexpected gain. After asking for Wang Ling's opinion, Grenade-throwing senior immortal unceremoniously put it into his pocket. Wang Ling didn't care about a mere first-class holy weapon at all. His body had long since become a sage, and there was almost no magic weapon in the world that could harm him with this body alone. But among the objects scattered on the ground, there was still one that Song Qing Shu and Grenade-throwing senior immortal had overlooked, and which caught Wang Ling's attention. Wang Ling crooked his finger, and that thing directly flew into his palm. It was a palm-sized bronze plate which was very thin and only as thick as a 1 yuan coin. A lotus flower was carved on it, and Wang Ling thought that this probably represented some sort of identity or organization that the woman truly belonged to. He recalled the woman's clamor that she was from Immortal Mansion. Was this an Immortal Mansion token? Wang Ling didn't dare be 100% sure. Unfortunately, the woman was already dead. Song Qing Shu had been a little ruthless in directly blowing up her brain. Otherwise Wang Ling would have been able to use the memory exploration spell to look for clues. Song Qing Shu stared blankly at the bronze plate in Wang Ling's hand, then looked at the two of them and asked, "Seniors, do you know what kind of organization Immortal Mansion is?" Wang Ling frowned. His intuition told him that this organization wasn't simple. Furthermore, his sixth sense had always been very accurate. "I think I've heard of this organization somewhere before, But I think that the 7-star sword in this woman's hand is most likely inextricably linked to this organization. Grenade-throwing senior immortal narrowed his eyes. I'll get to the bottom of this. But before that, I want to ask Brother Ling. Wang Ling? ? Do you still have any long johns? Hurry up and give this brother 2 sets. Chapter 156. It was June 2nd on Wednesday in the 6th week of the semester. After last night's commotion, Wang Ling had thought about a lot of things. Song Qing-shu had used the premise of providing clues about the maker of the stone ghost mask to forcefully suck up to Wang Ling. Wang Ling didn't dislike this kind of behavior, since he always felt that it would be very troublesome. In fact, he had also refused at the beginning. But his eyelid kept warning him that if he didn't do anything about it, it would lead to even more trouble. So in the end, he had no other choice. Whether he accepted it or not, both sides were troublesome. In the same situation, Wang Ling's only choice was to cut his losses, to prevent the situation from worsening. And then there was this immortal mansion. Wang Ling had very limited knowledge about the forces in the cultivation world, because he didn't care about these trivial matters at all. He had heard a lot about the distribution of forces from grenade-throwing senior immortal. Currently, the forces in the cultivation world could be roughly divided into 2 factions, light and dark. The light forces all had business licenses. In addition to accepting disciples and collecting tuition fees, these forces also had independent spirit herb cultivation bases to support their self-sufficiency and profit. Of course, the light forces were under the unified supervision and jurisdiction of Wuxia's government, and the sects were open and transparent about their power situations. The disciples they accepted were all itinerant cultivators with at least 100 years of cultivation after completing state-mandated quality education. They wouldn't come into conflict with the basic government education department. The other big dark force, to put it in one sentence, was a sect that operated without a license. Wuxia Nation's attitude toward this type of force had always been to punish them severely. As the owner of the Cultivation Forum and the Cultivation Chat Group, Grenade-throwing senior immortal had connections with all the light forces. He was well aware of the distribution of forces. If there was a force he hadn't heard of, it had to be one of the dark forces. Zhua and Yu had been hired by the Lady of the Castle as mercenaries, so for Immortal Mansion, these 2 people might not be key existences in the interlocking chain of forces. However, these 2 people had both reached the soul formation stage. Furthermore, they could refine a part of their bodies into magic treasures. It could only be said that as a dark force operating without a license, the power behind Immortal Mansion was indeed intriguing. After dealing with the woman's scattered belongings, Song Qing-shu followed Grenade-throwing senior immortal to Wuxian Garden. He would be assisting Grenade-throwing senior immortal in investigating the incident. After Third Saint, he became the 2nd person in Mo Immortal Castle to turn traitor. After the 2 of them left, Wang Ling looked at the time. It was already almost 3 in the morning, and he still had several exam papers to finish. The most painful thing was that all the exercise questions on this paper were beyond the syllabus. He had to spend 5 or 6 minutes previewing in advance before he could get these 2 gremlins, pen and eraser, to help him with his homework. As a 16-year-old baby, Wang Ling's heart was really tired. When Wang Ling returned to class early in the morning, for the first time, no one had copied homework this morning. Even Super Chen and Dopey Gua, these 2 nerdy shut-ins who played games together at night, had handed in their homework on time. Given his understanding of the 2 of them over this period of time, there had to be something wrong with them suddenly becoming so ambitious. He read their memories, and sure enough, learned a few things. Lotus Sun hadn't come to school today. The reason was that in the middle of the month, the grade 1 students of number 60 High School would collectively participate in military training. When number 59 High School heard that there would be military training, the 2 headmasters had decided to simply schedule the military training together, and in passing, promote the friendship between the 2 schools. Thus, Lotus Sun had been temporarily assigned to number 59 High School and integrated into the lives of the 2 schools ahead of time. In exchange, number 59 High School would also send a student to number 60 High School as an exchange student to experience the cultural differences between the 2 schools. This was the result of the headmasters of the 2 schools acting on their own. They hadn't informed anyone in advance, and had only given notice at the teachers' morning meeting yesterday, so most of the students were kept in the dark. But as the class representative, Dopey Gua often went in and out of the teachers' offices, so he was the first to understand the situation, This was also the reason why the two of them hadn't copied homework in the morning. Because they had heard that the exchange student from number 59 high school was also the school belle. If the school belle saw them copying homework, that would be too humiliating. I wonder who number 59 high school will send. Super Chen cupped his chin in his hands as he stared at the classroom door, waiting for the figure of his imagination to appear. Number 59 high school also had a lot of school bells. Although they weren't as magnetic and lethal as Lotus Sun's, their looks were passable. After spending so much time with Lotus Sun, the boys in grade 1, class 3 were actually vaguely tired of looking at her. The most important thing was that Lotus Sun was really too far away from them. She was a girl who was impossible to pursue. In contrast, the commoner school belle from No. 59 high school might be more to the boys' taste. It wasn't long before Teacher Pan's footsteps could be heard in the corridor. She's here, she's here. Dopey's pupils contracted slightly. From a distance, he could sense two auras hovering around Teacher Pan. Were there two exchange students? Teacher Pan paused at the classroom door and turned around to say to the two students who had been sent for the exchange, "Students, don't be nervous. Our students in grade 1, class 3 are very enthusiastic. I hope that you'll gain something from number 60 high school before the military training." After saying that, Teacher Pan walked straight through the door. Following that, two students from number 59 high school followed Teacher Pan's footsteps into grade 1, class 3. Super Chen and Dopey almost flipped the table when they saw this. They were actually two boys. F***K. We used number 60 high school's top school bell in exchange. How did we get these two things in return? Speaking of which, these two boys could actually be considered old acquaintances of number 60 high school, and even had a history with Wang Ling. Standing on the dais, Teacher Pan cheerfully introduced the two students from number 59 high school. "Students, let me introduce you. The one on the left is He Bufeng's classmate. The one on the right is classmate Tang Jingza. Everyone, give him a round of applause." Clap 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 clap. After a symbolic round of applause, Dopey couldn't help asking, "Teacher Pan, these two students don't seem to be grade 1 students. Is this really okay?" "It's like this. Classmate He Bufeng didn't participate in the school's military training for personal reasons. So this time, he'll be participating in the military training with the grade 1 freshmen. As for classmate Tang Jingza," Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses. "Number 59 high school thinks that we should send classmate Lotus Sunday. Headmaster Jean doesn't think it's good to just send classmate He Bufeng as an exchange student. So he also sent classmate Tang Jingza." Grade 1, class 3 was dead silent. Because according to Teacher Pan, this guy was a freebie. Wang Ling. What freaking freebie? Classmate Tang Jingza's grades are very good. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask him. Teacher Pan cleared her throat and thought about what she was going to say next, and her old face actually flushed a little. In addition, classmate He Bufeng's family runs an andrology hospital, and he also brought a gift when he came to our number 60 high school for the exchange this time. For the next 6 months, all boys can enjoy a 50% discount on circumcision services at the hospital run by classmate He Bufeng's family with their student IDs. What about the girls? Feather Lin raised her hand and asked. Teacher Pan, hair removal. Chapter 157. In the heart of the city, there was a rather majestic building. The office of the lady, the secretary of the Lord of Mo Immortal Castle, was on the top floor, and through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, one could completely overlook the city. Especially at night, the splendid lights of the city's heart made one feel nostalgic. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. A woman wearing a hairpin and black traditional clothes stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, her eyes a little vacant and her brows tightly furrowed. As soon as she arrived at the office, the lady received bad news. Her subordinate Ayu's life signal had disappeared. Everyone who worked in Mo Immortal Castle had the Lord's soul brand on them, which could be combined with a special life detector to monitor them. If it suddenly disappeared, it meant one of two things. Either the soul brand had been washed away, or they were already dead. The Lady of Castle was very clear about Ayu's plan. The Lady of the Castle was very clear about Ayu's plan. She had also single-handedly planned and arranged for Ayu to go out and take revenge on Song Qing-shu this time. However, Song Qing-shu and Ayu's soul brands had unexpectedly disappeared. For the sake of a mere Song Qing-shu, She had actually lost 2 of her beloved generals. The Lady of Castle found this a little hard to accept. Furthermore, she couldn't guarantee that Song Qingshu was truly dead. Although the life detector showed that Song Qingshu's soul brand had indeed disappeared, she couldn't rule out the possibility that this guy might have found a way to wash it away. While she was pondering this, the originally transparent floor-to-ceiling windows were shrouded in a layer of haze. Looking at the black shadow reflected in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lady's eyes twitched, and she bowed a little fearfully. "Greetings, Lord." The black shadow's voice seemed to come from an ethereal void as it echoed heavily. My venerable self saw that Song Qingshu's soul brand had disappeared. "Is he already dead?" The lady lowered her head and replied in a low voice, "This still needs to be investigated. This time, for the sake of a mere pawn, we actually lost 2 generals. You must reflect." "Yes, Lord." The lady cupped her fists at the black shadow. "This subordinate will definitely find out the truth as soon as possible, and will immediately lead people to investigate. If Song Qingshu is really dead, we will definitely be able to find traces of body-dissolving fluid at the coordinates where the life detector disappeared. Actually, my venerable self has always suspected that this person has someone behind him. The deaths of the great sage and second sage, as well as the betrayal of the third sage, are a warning to us. You must be extremely careful this time. At this point, our immortal castle can no longer tolerate any mistakes. Don't worry, Lord. Even if Song Qingshu has someone backing him, given our immortal castle's current foundation, no one can shake us. Given Lord's strength, as long as you can find that stone ghost mask, it will only be a matter of time before you dominate the world." The castle lord nodded. "Yes, we must investigate the matter regarding the stone ghost mask as soon as possible." At this moment, the shadow of the castle lord on the floor-to-ceiling window suddenly flickered. Then a cry of "Ah!" came from the void. Then, without saying a word, the shadow on the floor-to-ceiling window dissipated into nothingness. The lady was stupefied. Could it be that the castle lord was attacked? Castle lord? Castle lord? The bodyguard tried calling out twice. About 10 seconds later, the black shadow reappeared on the floor-to-ceiling window, and the voice of the lord of the castle came from the void again. "I'm fine. There was an accident just now. My long-range projector ran out of power. That new guy forgot to charge it for me last night, and he even spilled his coffee on my pants. Luckily, my pants are waterproof." The lady. Given the relationship between number 59 High School's headmaster Jean and number 60 High School's headmaster Chen, number 59 High School and number 60 High School were actually quite close. It was just that in recent years, the students had been competing with each other more seriously. But after the last Spirit Sword exchange meet, the relationship between the 2 schools had improved a lot. Meeting He Buffing and Tang Jingza for the second time gave Wang Ling a very mystical feeling. Back then, at number 59 High School, one of them was a delinquent senior whose name made people tremble with fear, and the other was the president of the student union who liked to find fault with others and compare himself with others. But both of them had ended up the same way. After the 4-day Spirit Sword exchange meet, both of them had lost their temper. Thus, they had embarked on the path of studying hard and making progress every day, adhering to the core values of cultivation. The first 2 classes this morning were still Teacher Pan's Tao Talismans class. The teaching progress of the 2 schools was actually about the same. He Buffing had no pressure at all to learn, and there was no need to mention Tang Jingza, who was an old senior who was about to graduate. He knew the high school curriculum like the back of his hand. After studying for the past few weeks, I believe that everyone already has a corresponding understanding of the 4 major spirit talismans. Among the functional spirit talismans, the spirit guiding talisman. This is the focus of our midterm exam. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the application of expanded functions of spirit talismans. At this point, everyone basically understood that Teacher Pan was going to start her daily lessons that went beyond the syllabus again. The spirit talisman I'm going to talk to you about today is the meditation talisman. Hearing this, Wang Ling couldn't help raising his eyebrows. This was a spirit talisman with an extremely high degree of difficulty. Through meditation, one could project it into the void and see some revelations about the future. But because it was very difficult, the success rate was extremely low. After mixing cinnabar with spirit water, Teacher Pan unfolded the yellow talisman and began a preliminary demonstration. She focused her spirit energy on the writing brush and frowned as she carefully wrote on the yellow talisman to ensure that there were no mistakes in the seal. The slightest mistake could directly cause the creation of the meditation talisman to fail. After about 3 minutes, Teacher Pan put away the brush and injected spirit energy into the yellow talisman. Everyone, look carefully. A moment later, the yellow talisman fluttered in the air. It was a dress that looked a little gorgeous. It was a little out of place with Teacher Pan's serious and old-fashioned style. Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses. This is a Dharma dress that I bought on a certain tabar a few days ago. Although Teacher Pan's demonstration had been successful, even Teacher Pan herself wasn't clear on what this brightly colored dress symbolized, and what kind of story would happen around it in the future. The meditation talisman could reveal key objects in the future, but as for what these key objects represented, one would have to use one's imagination to guess. Teacher Pan then gave everyone a set of talisman-making tools. Now, students, try out the steps just now. The classroom exploded once again. The seal on the meditation talisman was intricate and complicated, and it was a huge test of wrist strength to write it. The slightest difference in thickness could lead to failure. Even Tang Jingza, an old senior from number 59 high school, had to use up several yellow talismans, and he couldn't help frowning. This was too difficult. But just as he was trying it out by accident, the yellow talisman on Dopigua's desk suddenly buzzed and burst forth with light. Master of Dopey stared at the floating yellow talisman in disbelief. Did it work? Everyone's gazes followed the direction of the sky, and a moment later, a shadow was projected. What's that? Feather Lin looked curiously at the thing that had been projected from the sky. It looked very much like a fungus, with mushroom heads on both sides. On the top was something shaped like a mouth, and below it was a small hole which looked very smooth. When the boys around them saw this thing, they were directly stupefied. Master of Dopey coughed. Do you know the Taisui fungus? This thing is our family's ancestral meat lingji mushroom. Chapter 158. The difficulty of creating a meditation talisman was very high. Apart from Master of Dopey, who had managed to draw it by accident, everyone else's attempts ended in failure. Of course, Wang Ling was just pretending. He had deliberately made a mistake at the last step of writing the seal. Most people had failed, so it was even more impossible for him to stand out at a time like this, since it would really draw too much attention. In fact, the seal Wang Ling had drawn on the yellow paper was much more accurate than Teacher Pan's. But for Wang Ling, it was just for fun. The meditation talisman wasn't very useful for him. It could also serve as an early warning of disaster, but his eyelids were more intuitive. Overall, apart from Master of Dopey's wretched interlude, this Tao talisman's lesson could be considered quite harmonious. Dopigua had managed to complete the meditation talisman by accident. Even he himself didn't know why such a large meat lingji mushroom had appeared in the air. The scene turned awkward for a moment. Dopigua could only smile apologetically in an attempt to relieve the pressure in the atmosphere. But Teacher Pan was in the end Teacher Pan. As number 60 high school's top teacher and a teaching pioneer that the students were proud of, she had recognized the meat lingji mushroom at one glance. Teacher Pan frowned as she suddenly recalled that student Dopigua was often absent-minded in class. His eyes glazed over and his thoughts distracted. Sometimes, when she patrolled the back window of the classroom, she would even see this student Dopey sleeping on the table. This was clearly the syndrome of using too much meat lingji mushroom. Now, even the meditation talisman had reflected this thing, which was enough to prove the lethality of this meat lingji mushroom for youngsters. How could the flowers of the motherland indulge in such a strange place? Thus, there was no point in smiling apologetically or chatting awkwardly. Teacher Pan directly called Dopigua's parents over to discuss the meat lingji mushroom. This was really quite embarrassing. After class, Dopigua, who had returned from Teacher Pan's office, slumped over the table with a lifeless expression on his face. At the same time, he wailed in his heart, "My illustrious reputation. It was actually ruined just like that." Super Chen couldn't help patting Dopigua's shoulder. "Brother Gua, we're all men, we all know this. Actually, it doesn't matter. Our class is very united. We definitely won't tell the other classes about this. At least it's a good ending." Little Peanut also comforted him. Master of Dopey's tears welled up in the corners of his eyes and he simply wanted to cry. "What's so good about that? My parents were called." "Little Peanut, when I was delivering homework to the teacher just now, I heard the teachers in the office talking about your dad." Master of Dopey. "My dad?" Little Peanut, they're discussing whether your dad is a botanist. Master of Dopey. In the blink of an eye, it was noon. The atmosphere in the class seemed to be slightly heavy, causing He Buffing and Tang Jingza to feel very embarrassed. They didn't understand what exactly was going on. After asking around carefully, she found out that Mother Wan was coming to deliver food today. Every time they thought of Mother Wan's love bento filled with a strong dark wind, everyone couldn't help trembling. Doesn't Mother Wan usually only make bento on Fridays? How come today? Super Chen asked. Mother Wan heard that there will be 2 students from number 59 high school today, so she decided to make bento in advance. They'll be delivered to class later. Little Peanut replied weakly. He Buffing and Tang Jingza were touched when they heard this. They had long heard about number 60 high's hospitality, and sure enough, this kitchen lady was too considerate. Not only did she specially make bento, she would also specially deliver it to the classroom. In contrast, their number 59 high school's attitude toward number 60 high school back then was simply too much. He Buffing and Tang Jingza felt deeply ashamed in their hearts. Wang Ling. These 2 people clearly still didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. At number 60 high school, even Wang Ling couldn't deny that Mother Wan was an extraordinary woman in the world of cooking. He always felt that her identity wasn't simple, and that she had students all over the world. Wang Ling had already seen the shadow of Mother Wan's cuisine in too many places, the most famous of which was the heavenly silkworm potato strips. This was also the impression that most people had of Mother Wan's current signature dish. Since she had waved goodbye to the era of big pot dishes and turned to researching new cuisines, this heavenly silkworm potato strips was probably her dish with the highest score to date. Wang Ling had also seen a campus celebrity interview with Mother Wan in the school magazine last time. At the end of the interview, Mother Wan had generously shared her experience in making the heavenly silkworm potato strips. That was, don't ever lose the potatoes while stir-frying them. If the potatoes went into another wok while stir-frying them, they would change flavor. It was close to 12 o'clock when there was the sound of a cart being pushed at the originally quiet entrance to Grade 1, Class 3. The wheels of the cart rolled over the ground with a rumbling sound. It was Mother Wan pushing the cart over. Mother Wan pushed open the classroom door. She was still wearing a pale yellow apron and a snow-white chef's uniform, and her slightly plump figure was unadorned. When she smiled, there were faint crow's feet at the corners of her eyes. Everyone must have been waiting. It's time to eat. After saying this, light flowed out of her hands, and the delicately wrapped lunchboxes on the cart were immediately distributed into the hands of every student. Mother Wan put her hands on her hips in a domineering manner. In order to welcome 2 students from number 59 high school today, our love lunchboxes were specially made. Even the menu has been changed. Mother Wan knew that the relationship between the students of number 60 high school and number 59 high school was actually very tense, so it could be said that she had racked her brains for the love lunchboxes today. In the end, she finally had an idea. Except for Tang Jingza and He Buffing, everyone else in Grade 1, Class 3 sucked in a breath of cold air. Damn. Even the fixed dish in the love lunchboxes, the heavenly silkworm potato strips, had been changed. This time it was really GG. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and then opened the lunchboxes. The first thing they saw was stir-fried green peppers with mushrooms, which were still giving off steam. However, the mushrooms were a little strange, and looked a little like horses. After taking a bite, Super Chen already couldn't stand the earthy taste in his mouth, and he couldn't help picking it up and asking, "Mother Wan, what is this?" Mother Wan quickly replied, "This is a kind of fungus, it's very nutritious. Its scientific name is horse antler. Do you see the 2 halves of the skin on the side?" Super Chen nodded. Mother Wan explained slowly, "This skin is called a pine stinger, and it's a jellyfish that lives on sea pine. When I went to the frozen sea before, I directly jumped into the water to catch it, so it's still fresh. If you eat the pine stinger and horse antler together, you'll have the power to forgive. I hope that after eating these 2 dishes, you'll be able to live more harmonious and happy lives." Little Peanut, then this soup, Mother Wan. This is white lily soup, or white lily soup for short. Chapter 159. It was June 2nd on Thursday in the 6th week of the semester. That morning, Loopy Toad took out its little notebook from under the bed in Wang Ling's room. It continued to write down its human observation plan. It had already been several months since it had completely accepted the reality of its dog body. Loopy Toad now had a pretty good grasp of human language. Even when it used its dog paws to write, its handwriting was very neat. Loopy Toad felt that as long as it died again, given its current handwriting, it would definitely win its reputation in life and in death. As a cultured dog, Loopy Toad felt that its current level of literacy was already close to that of a human university student. It could be called a top student among dogs. Since learning to write an observation diary, Loopy Toad had also recorded a lot of things, big and small. In addition to observations on humans themselves, this diary also contained observations on certain events. From the vicious incident of Mother Wong being groped, Loopy Toad had discovered the formidable power of the human internet. The rapidly developing internet era enabled humans to quickly take sides online, and then use the Water Army Commander-in-Chief to summon 100,000 water armies to attack or defend a certain opinion. Thus, Loopy Toad felt that there was a reason why the demon race had failed to break into the human world through the gate between worlds all those years ago. Human information technology was really too advanced. It was like this online, and it was also like this in reality. Especially when it came to resisting the invasion of the gate between worlds, there wasn't a single phone call that couldn't be handled. Send a shared coordinate, and a capable cultivator nearby would immediately hear the news and rush over. In contrast, the demon race was still using the most primitive method of sensing to gather their strength, and had already lost at the starting line. All in all, the demon race still had a lot to learn. Loopy Toad now also knew how to operate a phone and an intelligent wristwatch, which was really too convenient. In contrast, the demon world was actually still using spirit talismans to send messages, which was really too lowly. After writing in the diary, Loopy Toad closed the notebook and put it back under the bed. It then opened the window on the second floor and jumped down to the villa. Today's weather forecast for Songhai City had changed again. It wasn't as hot and stuffy as the TV had said. On the contrary, when the gentle breeze and the sun shone on Loopy Toad's green dog fur, Loopy Toad even felt refreshed. But without Wong Ling by its side, Loopy Toad felt like something was missing in its heart. It stared blankly at the end of East Huang Road, looking a little lonely. Although Little Master Ling usually didn't like to talk, Loopy Toad had a basic understanding of Little Master Ling's character after spending so much time together. The key was to be honest with Little Master Ling. Wong Ling didn't like to stir up trouble, and he didn't like it when people kowtowed to him. If Little Master Ling was compared to a cat, it was best to go along with its fur. If you went against its fur and tried to cause trouble, it would most likely explode in anger. When it had first arrived at the Wong family, Loopy Toad had always been a little scared, but now that it had known them for a long time, it gradually relaxed. Sometimes, he would even help it stroke its fur in his spare time. Although Loopy Toad had turned into a dog, its cultivation hadn't been delayed. It was trying to think of a way to use this body to return to its prime. And Wong Ling's help to stroke its fur was actually very helpful. A big shot at the level of an immortal king personally stroking its fur. What kind of treatment was this? Furthermore, Wong Ling's stroking had the effect of dredging the meridians and stimulating the acupuncture points. After being stroked a few times, Loopy Toad felt that its waist wasn't sore and its legs didn't hurt anymore, and it even had more energy to cultivate. Standing in the courtyard outside the villa, Loopy Toad used the Demon King Heart Sutra that it was familiar with, which Wong Ling had already modified. To use the Demon King Heart Sutra, the source of demon chi was needed. But in the human world, the source of demon chi didn't exist, so Wong Ling had helped Loopy Toad replace the source of demon chi in the Demon King Heart Sutra with the source of spirit chi. When Loopy Toad used the technique at that moment, it could feel spirit chi flowing into its celestial aperture and overflowing. It felt like the Tao of nature. Loopy Toad had never experienced this wonderful feeling before. Loopy Toad's body was now much stronger than before. It was already comparable to a nascent soul cultivator, and an average golden core cultivator wouldn't be able to do anything to it. It was a demon king, an outstanding figure in the demon race. Back then, a demon king had been able to fight 5 soul formation cultivators. Standing under the sun, Loopy Toad opened its pitch-black eyes, which glowed with an azure blue light. It could feel its demon king's soul gradually being restored. At the same time, its keen sense of smell picked up on the scent of a stranger. Keeping its gaze fixed in one direction, it sensed signs of a stranger in the vicinity of the Wong family's small villa. The Wong family's small villa was on the east side of East Huang Road, and to the west was an undeveloped commercial area. It was said that according to the original plan, A large imported shopping mall would be opened here. But it was a pity that the boss ran away with his sister-in-law before the matter was even halfway done. As for the building materials that had been shipped here, such as reinforced concrete, bricks, glass and some wood, no one had taken care of them. Ayu had died under an old locust tree in this commercial development area. At that moment, two men in suits with sophisticated equipment on their backs appeared in the originally empty building materials area. They were looking for traces of body-dissolving fluid. Generally speaking, high-quality body-dissolving fluid wouldn't leave any traces. But Mo Immortal Castle's body-dissolving fluid had been made by Mo Immortal Castle itself. A special substance had been incorporated into it, and Mo Immortal Castle could detect it through a special gas-collecting device. The two men were holding a cylindrical object with a very long tube at the end that was connected to a backpack. Very quickly, when they reached an old locust tree, the device beeped in warning. One of them quickly turned on his wristwatch to report the situation to the lady of the castle. "Leader, we found a use location based on the coordinates where the soul brand disappeared, and we've detected traces of body-dissolving fluid." On the other end of the line, the lady of the castle asked in a deep voice, "What about Song Qingshu's location? Have you found it?" Based on their current location, the two men quickly located the location where Song Qingshu's soul brand had disappeared. Finally, they looked at the building in the east. "We've found the lady of the castle. It's a villa. Song Qingshu's soul imprint disappeared in this villa." "A villa?" The lady was astonished. There were actually people who had settled down in this desolate countryside? Her expression darkened. "How about this? Sneak into the villa and investigate." The two men in suits hesitated for a moment before saying, "But the lady of the castle, there's a dog at the entrance of the villa." "Wouldn't that be too obvious?" "It's just a dog, let's do it for dog meat. We'll let you have a sumptuous feast. Isn't that great?" Chapter 160. The area around East Huang Road was a low-end area that hadn't been developed yet. Apart from the transport vehicles transporting supplies into the city, there were very few other vehicles that passed through here. It could really be described as a wilderness. So when the two men in suits saw a villa here, not only were they a little surprised, they also felt a little strange. Ever since the real estate bubble, housing prices had long since fallen off. Even a white-collar worker could buy a large house of several hundred square meters in the city with his salary. If he felt that there wasn't enough space, he could also entrust a construction team to use the space expansion spell to increase the space. After all, this technique was now quite mature. So, what kind of family was this? The two men in suits felt a little strange in their hearts, but the lady had already spoken, so they could only obey her arrangements. They stuck invisibility talismans on, and their bodies instantly glowed with a mirage of colored glass before they turned completely transparent. This type of invisibility talisman could hide one's aura. In fact, it was also a prohibited type of talisman, and generally only certain government departments in Wuxia Nation allowed its limited production and use. The talismans in the hands of the two men in suits had been privately made by Mo Immortal Castle. In fact, this was already illegal, and if they were caught, they would be directly detained. But when the two men tiptoed closer to the villa's entrance, they inexplicably breathed sighs of relief. Because after probing with their spiritual senses, they hadn't sensed the source of spirit energy in the villa. Is this an ordinary family? The two men were a little puzzled. However, since it was an ordinary family, the following matters would be much easier to handle. The window on the second floor is open. Let's go up and take a look first. The two men thought it over, and directly jumped through the window. It was Wang Ling's bedroom, which was quite spacious. They entered the study one after another and started to look around. As they pondered this, they reached the door. Then, a furry green tail suddenly dropped down from the ceiling. This tail was too thick and strong. The two of them were startled. They hurriedly took a big step back and raised their heads. This time, they saw a slightly larger green Akita. It was hanging upside down on the ceiling, staring at them with a hostile gaze. This was the dog they had seen at the villa's entrance before. The two of them recognized it at a glance. They had felt that there was something wrong with the dog, but they didn't expect that there was really something wrong with it. Also, wasn't this dog way too big? One look and you could tell that it wasn't a decent dog. In fact, What shocked the two men the most was the dog's insight. They were still wearing the invisibility talisman, but it could still discover them. This was enough to prove that the dog's strength was not weaker than theirs. In fact, it was far stronger than theirs. What should we do? This dog doesn't look weak. Should we retreat first? You're already here. It would be a pity to leave just like that. Both of us are at the peak of the late-stage gold core realm. Why should we be afraid of a dog? Late-stage gold core? Loopy Toad jumped down from the ceiling and sneered. Back at number 60 high, it hadn't been afraid of a golden core cultivator even when it was so weak. Now he was even less afraid. Since their identities had already been exposed, the two Immortal Castle cultivators felt that there was no need for them to hide anymore. Spirit light flashed in their hands, and each of them summoned an immortal sword to attack. One of the men in a suit pointed his sword directly at Loopy Toad. We originally just wanted to investigate something and didn't mean to offend you, but you bastard insisted on stopping us. Don't blame us for being impolite. The two men swiftly circulated their spirit energy and moved in unison, even brandishing their sword chi in unison. It was very obvious that the people who worked in Immortal Castle had been trained and nurtured in an assembly line fashion. The advantage of this was that they could train a lot of people who were proficient in sword techniques in a short period of time, but the disadvantage was that they were too monotonous. Anyone who had studied sword techniques a little would be able to see through them in just a few rounds. Thus, whenever the people from Immortal Castle attacked during a mission, they would do so with murderous intent, and they wanted to end the fight in the shortest possible time. This was to avoid drawing out the fight and creating openings. But looking at the two men's movements, Loopy Toad really felt that they were a little slow, and felt a little sleepy. Thinking back to when it had been in the demon world back then, when it had been talking and laughing with the sword demon King Hua Laisher, these two guys probably hadn't even been born yet, right? Then, two dazzling flaming sword lights interrupted Loopy Toad's thoughts. Its eyes met the two sword lights, and just as they were about to reach it, they stopped as if they had come to a stop, and were unable to move forward even half a step. Aura freezing spell. The two Immortal Castle cultivators were alarmed. In a situation where there was a complete disparity in realms, there was a way to rely on aura alone to fight, and that was the famous demon ray spell, aura freezing spell. By releasing a special aura to counteract the spirit waves or sharpness produced by a magic weapon, this was a fairly advanced spell. The reason why the demon kings who had descended from the gate between worlds back then had been such a headache was because of this aura freezing spell. For demon kings of the demon race, the aura freezing spell was in fact more like a barrier spell. It could evade the lethality of a cultivator's magic weapon at the first instance. So 6 years ago, Loopy Toad had felt pretty miserable, because its aura freezing spell had been completely useless against Wang Ling. At that time, Little Master Ling had pierced itself with one punch. Now that it had recovered part of its strength, it could finally use this spell again. Loopy Toad couldn't help sighing in its heart. Thinking about it carefully, it also felt like a lifetime had passed. The expressions of the two Immortal Castle cultivators finally changed as they were completely frightened. They realized that they absolutely couldn't touch this dog. It actually knew the demon race's spell. What on earth was this dog's identity? Retreat! They turned to leave, but found that their bodies wouldn't listen to them, and they couldn't move at all. The aura freezing spell just now had actually followed the sword lights that had slashed at them in the opposite direction. They were completely immobilized. You shouldn't have come here, Loopy Toad said as it swept its gaze over the two people lazily. It withdrew its spirit energy and its body shrank, the blue light in its eyes disappearing. Loopy Toad didn't know if it was because it had been with Little Master Ling for too long, but it didn't feel as murderous as before. It had clearly swallowed the soul of a shadow stream killer back at number 60 high school. But now, faced with two cultivators with delicious souls at peak late golden core stage, it actually wasn't the least bit interested. What are you going to do with them? At that moment, a voice came from behind the man in a suit. The two Immortal Castle cultivators turned pale with fright. They had never expected there to be someone else in the room. Two huge shadows covered them, and they were none other than the two muscular brothers whom Wang Ling had enlightened, the Monster Pen and Goblin Eraser. Chapter 161. Loopy Toad didn't have any intention of killing these two people, But little Master Ling would definitely be unhappy if he found out that they had broken into the Wang family's villa without permission and were plotting something. Loopy Toad wasn't interested in their souls, but it also didn't want them to leave alive, so it was best to leave them to these two gremlins, Pen and Eraser. These two people couldn't move at all, and had no idea what the two muscular brothers behind them were going to do to them. They were scared to the point of peeing their pants, but unfortunately, the aura freezing spell was so powerful that even their cavernous bodies were frozen. Both of them couldn't stop trembling. Pen. Should we get rid of them? Eraser. Forget it, little master won't be happy if their blood splashes all over the room. Alright, there was only one way left. The two muscular brothers looked at the toilet in Wang Ling's bedroom at the same time, and then escorted the two people to the toilet. Pen. You're lucky. Our little master likes cleanliness, so we won't let you see blood today. The two immortal castle cultivators turned pale with fright. What do you want to do? Hee what? Rubbing his fists, Goblin Eraser opened the toilet lid, then grabbed one of them by the foot and directly flipped him upside down before stuffing him into the toilet. Finally, he quickly pressed the flush button, and with the sound of rushing water, this person was directly sucked in and directly disappeared. Wang Ling had enlightened this toilet, and it led to an alternate space. No one knew exactly where it led to. But in theory, once they were flushed down the toilet, these two people would essentially disappear from the world. The other immortal castle cultivator was so frightened that his face was covered in sweat. You! Goblin Eraser put one foot on the toilet seat and pointed at it condescendingly. Are you going to go in yourself, or do you want me to throw you in? The immortal castle cultivators. There were actually a lot of things to do on Thursday. When Wang Ling came to class in the morning, Little Peanut was handing out school notices with a bitter expression on his face. What's this? Dopey stared at the grayish-yellow school paper. This was a notice before the military training in the middle of the month. Some of the items and things to take note of during the military training were marked on it. Everyone's gaze swept through the notice line by line. Soon, all the boys in the class burst out screaming in pain. F***CK. Do we have to shave during military training? Super Chen didn't want to do it. It hadn't been easy for him to get a short fringe. It would be such a pity to cut it off. Also, why can girls get special treatment? Super Chen felt that this was serious gender discrimination. Amidst the resentment, Master of Dopey said indifferently, calm down for a while, and don't talk about gender discrimination. Let me ask you, which is more important, the bangs or the teapot? The boys thought about it for a while and didn't say anything. Seeing that everyone had quietened down, Dopey nodded in satisfaction. That's right. Actually, a buzz cut is pretty good. It's summer in Songhai City, and the weather is hot. It'll be cooler after I shave my head. Back in the day, I also had bangs. But after thinking about it carefully, I realized that it didn't matter whether I had bangs or not. After all, I relied on my talent to survive in the world. Hearing this for some reason, the boys in the class suddenly thought of a saying. He used to be a king. Later, he said, forget it. Wang Ling felt that Dopey's skin was already hopelessly thick. A haircut wasn't a stranger to Wang Ling, and coincidentally, he had also had bangs before. Furthermore, he could use the spirit energy in his body to stimulate his scalp to rapidly grow hair. This technique focused on stable control of spirit energy and precise positioning after using inner vision. Most golden core cultivators could actually do it. It was just that after Wang Ling used this technique, his hair grew much faster than an ordinary person's. There had been a time when Wang Ling had been obsessed with creating all kinds of hairstyles, but he had later figured it out. Actually, hairstyle wasn't the main point, it was his good looks. So Wang Ling had simply kept a buzz cut until now. Looking at the notice, Wang Ling touched his hair. It seemed a little long. After school, Wang Ling went alone to a small, affordable hairdresser's. This shop was relatively small, but the environment and facilities weren't bad. Furthermore, it specialized in cutting hair for students. Of course, there were plenty of other medium-sized and even large hairdressers next to this affordable hairdresser's, but Wang Ling felt that getting a haircut there was really too expensive. He couldn't afford it with his monthly allowance at all. It was just a buzz cut, wouldn't it be the same everywhere? With this thought in mind, Wang Ling walked into this Alice hairdresser's. As soon as he entered, Wang Ling heard the sound of a hairdryer. The boss was a middle-aged man with slicked back hair. He had a bit of a bald spot on his head, a little flab on his slightly chubby face, and wore a pair of wire glasses. When he saw Wang Ling come in, he immediately put on a big smile. "Handsome, are you looking for a personal hairdresser?" Wang Ling was silent, then shook his head. The boss's eyes lit up, and he immediately felt that his chance had come. "Handsome, we have a 30 yuan super hairdresser, a 60 yuan chief hairdresser, and a 150 yuan chief hairdresser. As long as you top up 500 yuan in our shop and get a card, you can enjoy a 10% discount from the chief hairdresser. It only costs 15 yuan. Wang Ling shook his head again. He looked around, and his eyes finally fell on a young man. The young man was helping a hairdresser with a yellow airplane haircut, and the two of them were standing around an auntie to give her a perm. "Who is this?" Wang Ling's voice rang out in the boss's head. The boss was startled. But very quickly, the boss regained his composure. His shop was rarely visited by cultivators, and was still more frequented by ordinary people. Even foundation establishment high school students would go to the large and medium-sized hairdressers next door. Thus, Wang Ling's appearance surprised the boss a little. It was said that cultivators were rich. They didn't care about money in the secular world at all, and were the kind that spent money like it was dirt. They even topped up their phone cards for several million yuan. Had he just picked up a fat sheep? The boss was overjoyed and quickly explained, "This little brother is a new apprentice in our shop, but no customers have dared to cut his hair. So now we can only let him cut a wig for practice. If Handsome is willing to get a card, I'll have this apprentice's Sherfu, Master Kevin, cut your hair. This is the top hairdresser in our shop." "Does it cost money?" Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and asked telepathically. "Handsome only needs a card, and Master Kevin only costs 15 yuan for a haircut." Wang Ling shook his head, looked at the young man, and said telepathically again, "I'm talking about him." The boss was blank for a moment, and somehow felt that the situation wasn't good. He's an apprentice. There's no charge." Wang Ling nodded, then pointed at the young man. "That's him." Chapter 162. Actually, Wang Ling felt that he really wasn't a stingy person. Money should be spent where it should be spent, and not a penny where it shouldn't be spent. This was the economic view of consumption that Wang Ling had developed since he was a child under the guidance of father and mother Wang. A haircut was just a trivial matter, and Wang Ling was more willing to spend the money on crispy noodle snacks. He had recently heard that Little Raccoon had released a new flavor, which was indigo wood mustard. Wang Ling planned to buy a packet to try it out. If he could save the money for this haircut, he could buy a few more packets. After a moment of silence in the barber shop, the apprentice brother whom Wang Ling had called out had an incredulous expression on his face. He turned to Wang Ling and bowed solemnly. "Thank you for your trust in me. I will definitely do my best." Wang Ling nodded indifferently, then found a place to sit down. Everyone around him also looked at Wang Ling strangely, because apprentice hairdressers were actually very frightening existences. They were no less frightening than a new intern nurse in a hospital. The only difference was that one would stick needles into your skin, while the other would dig into your scalp. Wang Ling was probably the only one who had the guts to do this. This was probably the apprentice brother's first time cutting a customer's hair. Holding the electric razor in his hand, a few drops of cold sweat trickled down the corners of his eyebrows. He looked a little nervous, like an inexperienced little sister who was about to offer her first time. I'm going to start." It was just a buzz cut. He just needed to clean the sides and the back. It wasn't that hard. The apprentice brother comforted himself, but the moment the electric razor touched Wang Ling's scalp, his hand trembled. In a flash, the back of Wang Ling's head was shaved bald. "Little brother." "The boss." Wang Ling rubbed his bald scalp and shook his head. Then, the hair there actually grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, and very quickly. He turned from a Wuku into a Scion. The boss and his companions were stupefied. What the hell? There was this kind of operation? After about an hour, Wang Ling walked out of the barber shop without a hitch. The boss grabbed Wang Ling. "Zhenren, don't go." Then, Wang Ling saw the boss take out 200 yuan from his trouser pocket and stuff it into Wang Ling's hand. "Wang Ling." The boss pointed behind him at the hair strewn all over the floor, and looked at Wang Ling gratefully. Thank you, spiritual master, for providing my shop with hair. The quality of immortal hair is really too good. It can be made into a high-class wig. This 200 yuan is the market price for hair. I hope that Taoist master will come often in the future. Wang Ling. Wang Ling combed his hair and went home, his pockets full of half-price crispy noodle snacks. This time, he had shaved his head and picked up 200 yuan for free, replenishing his stock of crispy noodle snacks. When he got home, he found that there were a lot of people in the house today. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu were waiting in the living room, and the old man very politely served them a bowl of mung bean soup. In the summer, old people had the habit of boiling mung bean soup to relieve internal heat. When Old Man Wang was young, his mung bean soup was a star dish in restaurants. There was a limited supply every day, and even a bowl was hard to come by. However, it was a pity that these two fools did not know how to cherish or be grateful. Staring blankly at this bowl of mung bean soup, they started to ponder the meaning of the mung beans in it. In just a short while, they could even clearly count how many mung beans there were in the bowl. Song Qing-shu actually didn't have this problem at first, but after following Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal for a few days, he had been led astray. Brother Ling. Seeing Wang Ling appear, Grenade-throwing cupped his fists politely. Next to him, Song Qing-shu also stood up and saluted, calling him Ling Zhenren. The old man didn't care about Wang Ling. He still had to catch up on his TV series. Seeing that Wang Ling had arrived, he hurriedly waved his hand and said to the two of them, "Well, there's more in the pot of mung bean soup. If it's not enough, I'll go get more. You guys talk first." "Okay, thank you, great senior." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said sternly and nodded. At the same time, he was deep in thought. I definitely have to take the mung bean soup home later and carefully study its mysteries. Maybe after drinking this soup, I'll have hope of reaching the void refinement stage. Wang Ling. Returning to the topic at hand, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sat on the sofa and looked at Wang Ling as he said, "Brother Ling, I came to look for you this time because I have good news. Thanks to Little Song this time, we found the whereabouts of the maker of the stone ghost mask." Song Qing-shu echoed him. "I only provided a little clue, but thanks to Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and that Senior Black, they were able to pinpoint the location based on the clue." Hearing this, Wang Ling nodded. In the end, Song Qing-shu still fulfilled his promise and didn't go back on his word. If they could find the maker of the stone ghost mask, it meant that the matter of the stone ghost mask would come to an end very soon. As for Mo Immortal Castle, which had been trying to use the mask to secretly rise to power, their plot would also be completely ruined. Of course, this was the ideal situation. In fact, Wang Ling was also very curious about the identity of the maker of the mask. According to the location Little Black gave me, the maker isn't far from here. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the location message that Little Black had sent him, which clearly indicated the distance between the 2 points, which was 800 kilometers. An ordinary cultivator would be able to reach this distance in 20 minutes on a flying sword. Wang Ling cupped his chin as he looked at the coordinates that Little Black had sent him, and slowly frowned. The more he looked, the more he felt that this place was a little familiar. "Brother Ling, don't worry, Little Black found this place after repeated calculations and verification. Combined with my great magic power, there's absolutely no mistake." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal vowed solemnly. But Wang Ling had a bad feeling about this, and his eyelids started to twitch again. It was a one-star disaster alert. Who knew what on earth would happen? Wang Ling had Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu put their hands on his shoulders, and then with a swish, the three of them simultaneously teleported in the direction of the coordinates. Right after that, a somewhat old-school restaurant that looked like it was on the verge of collapsing appeared in front of them. Looking at the huge words, "Midnight Dining Hall," on a horizontal board hanging from the entrance, Wang Ling was lost in deep thought. Damn! Why was it this place? Could it be that this restaurant owner used to be a smith? From a smith to a chef. Wang Ling felt that this was even more ridiculous than being a crossover singer. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the twitching expression on Wang Ling's long-lost poker face, and couldn't help feeling a little curious. "Brother Ling, it seems that you've been here before?" The melodious singing in the restaurant rang out one after another. "This is the person I deeply love and think about day and night." Chapter 163. When the three of them entered, Midnight Dining Hall's boss, Tan Siming, was scrubbing the dishes. The long knife scar on his face and the bitter expression on his face made him look especially ferocious in the dim light. Although it wasn't time for customers to visit yet, the boss was already preparing to receive them at midnight. As for the song Old Boys, sung by Tang Yuning, it had been played on an obsolete old-fashioned radio next to the boss. In this day and age, radio stations were no longer very popular, but that couldn't stop people's feelings for radio programs. So although there weren't many radio programs, there were still people doing them. Among them, one had to mention Zhang Yi, the radio's top presenter. He wasn't just a radio presenter, he had a broadcasting background, but was also a very famous filmmaker. He had once written a book about his experiences called I Am a Big Star, and the entire book was filled with all kinds of lyrics, poems and stories. It always felt like he was showing off his knowledge. As a veteran online novelist, Father Wang also defined the nature of this book as hydrology. Boss Tan was still washing the dishes. When they came in, he almost reflexively pointed at the menu on the wall and said unhurriedly, "That's all there is on the menu. But if you want to eat something else, I can make it for you." After all, apart from Wang Ling, this was the first time grenade throwing and Song Qingshu had come here. Song Qingshu thought for a bit and felt that it wouldn't be polite to interrogate them as if they were criminals without ordering anything. So he asked for 3 large bowls of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles. He even took the initiative to settle the bill. 1 large bowl was 20 yuan, and 3 large bowls were 60 yuan. Song Qingshu straightaway threw out a 100 yuan bill, and even waved his hand at Boss Tan to tell him to keep the change. Nouveau riche was capricious. In fact, grenade-throwing senior immortal had been using Song Qingshu as a human ATM for the past 2 days. This guy had sold off all the assets he had accumulated over the years at Mo Immortal Castle, and now had so much money that he didn't know how to spend it. "Thank you." When the boss collected the money, he finally looked up and saw Wang Ling among the 3 people, and his expression instantly changed. "Aren't you that 33 yuan and 70 cents creative genius?" Wang Ling. Boss Tan still had an impression of Wang Ling. After all, he was the man who had sold the song Old Boys, which had now spread all over Wuxia Nation. Such a popular song, along with the lyrics and music, had been sold for 33 yuan and 70 cents. The same as 2 medium bowls of beef noodles. "Boss, do you know this brother of mine?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked as he looked at the boss. "He and his father came to my shop to order beef noodles before." Boss Tan answered. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart trembled. It turned out that Senior Wang had also been to this shop. It seems like this shop is not simple. "This song Old Boys, you've all heard it, right?" After thinking for a while, Boss Tan simply told him about the song Old Boys. Grenade-throwing senior immortal and Song Qingshu were greatly shaken when they heard this. "Brother Ling, you can write songs?" Wang Ling nodded shamelessly, his face expressionless. Because from a theoretical point of view, he was just a carrier of songs. At the mention of Old Boys, Boss Tan's resentful expression deepened. Previously, when Little Tang wasn't popular, he would always come to my shop. There was a time when he had to rely on me to help him survive in Songhai City. Now that he's popular, he hasn't been here for a long time. Speaking up to this point, Boss Tan smiled bitterly. "I was hoping that he would help me drum up some business. This is simply abandoning him after using him." Grenade-throwing senior immortal shook his head. The boss had originally been depressed about this matter, but now that he had found someone to talk to, his mood instantly improved a lot. He looked at the previous boss and said, "By the way, why did you come to me at this hour?" Back to the topic at hand, Boss Tan wasn't a fool. It was written very clearly in his shop that it generally opened at midnight, but these 3 people had come to him at 7 or 8, and had even ordered 3 big bowls of beef noodles in one go. The most important thing was that they had even given him a tip. There was most likely something fishy going on here. Boss Tan had seen a lot of people over the years, and could sometimes guess what the customers in his shop were thinking just by looking at their expressions. Fortunately, Boss Tan was a straightforward person, and his attitude reassured grenade-throwing senior immortal. He didn't try to hide anything, and with a flash of spirit light, he took out an illustration of the stone ghost mask which he had prepared in advance. "Boss Tan, have you seen this before?" Boss Tan cupped his chin as he gazed at the illustration, his expression gradually turning serious. He then stared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and asked a little excitedly, "Where did you find this mask?" When Boss Tan said this, the weight in everyone's hearts was instantly lifted. Sure enough, the owner of this shabby restaurant, Boss Tan, had something to do with the stone ghost mask. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal answered truthfully, "Brother Ling bought the mask we have on some treasure for 5 yuan, and it even included free shipping." Boss Tan, if you know more about this mask, please tell us the truth. Please tell us the truth. As far as we know, there should be 2 stone ghost masks. This is a twin magical weapon. And now, someone is trying to use these 2 masks to do evil. Saying this, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stepped forward and gripped Boss Tan's hand tightly. "Boss Tan, it's up to you to save the world." Boss Tan stared at the illustrated handbook for a while, then shook his head and replied, "Although I'm very surprised as to how on earth you found me, I don't know. But I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not the only one who made these 2 masks. When I was young, I made them with the little girl from the neighborhood." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Made of mud? But there's primordium black crystal in this mask. It's the hardest metal in the entire universe. Boss Tan thought carefully for a moment before saying, "Oh, we did indeed find some black crystals in the mud at the time, so we just put them in." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Song Qing-shu and Wang Ling. The scene fell into a dead silence. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. "So, Boss Tan, you're not a smith?" Boss Tan shrugged. "I never said I was. The girl was the one who made the masks. I just cooperated with her in making them. In the end, it was also the dry mud she baked." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Then, does Boss Tan still have the contact information for that mud-playing little girl?" Boss Tan, "It's been so many years, we haven't been in contact for a long time. But I still remember this girl's name. Maybe you can investigate based on this lead." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "What's her name?" Boss Tan, "Nuwa." Chapter 164. Based on the information Song Qing-shu had provided, it had taken Little Black 2 days and 2 nights to obtain this lead. He had thought that there would be significant progress, but before this step could be taken, the lead had been cut off again. Even he felt vaguely annoyed. Now, where to find this mud-playing little girl called Nuwa had become a thorny problem. Of course, if he hadn't been restricted by the Dao Talisman seal, he could have used her aura to track down and lock onto a target, but that would have caused the global power grid to go down, which wasn't an outcome he wanted to see. It was very clear that the stone ghost mask was a very tricky problem. Boss Tan looked at the 3 distressed people and was deep in thought. After a moment, he took out an iron box from his drawer and gave it to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Boss Tan, what's this?" "There's a hawthorn tree seed inside," Boss Tan replied. "This is a promise I made to that girl when I was little. I'll find a place to plant the seed, and as long as it blossoms and bears fruit one day, that girl will appear under it." Will this really work? It had been so many years. He probably couldn't even remember the names of his kindergarten classmates anymore. Those promises he had made when he was little really didn't sound very reliable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal recalled how he had boasted every day when he was little that he would marry all the girls in kindergarten, but now, he was still a single dog. "There's no other way, I can only try everything I can." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the iron box, picked up the hawthorn tree seed inside, and sighed. By the time they returned to Wuxian Garden with the hawthorn tree seed, it was already close to midnight. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qing-shu had gone to confirm a few things. They had heard from Loopy Toad that Mo Immortal Castle had sent 2 people to investigate during the day. Even with his eyes closed, Song Qing-shu knew that they had to have been sent by the lady of the castle to confirm whether he was dead or not. Unfortunately, Loopy Toad had simply and roughly flushed them down the toilet, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal Castle hadn't been able to ask them for more details. Otherwise, they would have definitely been able to get a lot of little-known secrets out of these 2 people. Be careful in the next 2 days. Those people definitely know that you're not dead. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal told Song Qing-shu as he planted the hawthorn seed in his backyard. "Don't worry, Senior. Senior Wang hasn't taken back his long johns yet," Song Qing-shu replied. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal broke out in a sweat. Most enchanted magic treasures have a time limit, and Brother Ling will probably enchant them again regularly. I don't think you have much time left with the long johns you're wearing. So when it's time to run, you have to run, understand? Song Qing-shu nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, of course, Senior. I haven't returned Senior Wang's flip-flops. If I were to run now, I would be faster than a reporter. Song Qing-shu. Speaking of which, are these hawthorn seeds really useful? Who knows? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal patted the spirit soil in his hand and sighed slightly. According to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's calculations, it would take at least 5 days for the seeds to sprout, given the power of the spirit earth and the current cultivation speed. It would take at least half a month for it to grow into a hawthorn tree. The most important thing was whether that girl called Nuwa would show up as promised. Staring at the spirit earth, the two of them sank into deep thought, feeling a severe pain in the ass. It was June 3rd on Friday in the 6th week of the semester. That morning, some families were happy and some were sad. For the sake of the military training, the boys had all shaved their hair to a crew cut. Some of the more heroic ones, like Super Chen, had been straightaway shaved bald by the hairdresser. Holding his head, Super Chen wanted to cry but had no tears to shed. He had clearly told the hairdresser that he only needed to trim his hair. Even if it was a crew cut, he had to look handsome. Who would have thought that the hairdresser would, in the blink of an eye, trim and embroider him into a bald Wu-ku? Super Chen felt that he must have owed the hairdresser a huge sum of money in his previous life. He was really bloody unlucky. When Teacher Pan walked into the classroom, it was actually a little noisy as everyone was discussing hairstyles. But today, Teacher Pan uncharacteristically didn't get angry. Instead, she silently put her handouts on the lectern and admired the boys' crew cuts with the girls around her. As a man, he should feel refreshed like this. How good was this? As a pioneer teacher at number 60 High, Teacher Pan had led many batches of elite students. The most impressive thing about Teacher Pan was her strict teaching style and class rules. She was a person who liked to follow the rules, and anyone who got to know her for a long time would have a deep impression of her obsessive-compulsive disorder. Now that all the boys had shaved their crew cut, Teacher Pan's mood was as relaxed as if she had been constipated for a long time and had finally been released. While Teacher Pan was rejoicing over the boys' new looks in Grade 1, Class 3, on the other side, the general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City was in an uproar. Audiobook sat at his desk with a little bitter resentment. Ever since number 60 High had been attacked by shadow stream killers, he hadn't been able to let it go. Thus, as soon as he took office, he had increased the vigilance of all the high schools within the jurisdiction of the general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City. This was to prevent heretics from rising again. Audiobook didn't want to make the slightest slip-up while he was still in office. The official culture of cultivators was far more complicated than ordinary people could imagine. Number 60 High was his alma mater. If he couldn't even protect it, it would inevitably become a topic of gossip and ridicule. It was almost time for number 60 High's military training, so Audiobook had secretly increased the security at number 60 High in the last few days. Unfortunately, Audiobook received bad news at this juncture. The younger sister of the Master of Shadow Stream, who had been captured at number 59 High School previously, had broken out of prison. Songhai City's Class 1 prison was an important place for serious criminals deployed by the Cultivation Police Department. A lot of famous criminals had been imprisoned here. The criminal from Fury Cultivation University who had poisoned his roommate had been locked up here for a very long time, and was finally executed in accordance with the law. This incident had alarmed national leaders, and it just so happened that members of the Central Cultivation Inspection Team were in Songhai City. Secretary Da Kong had rushed to the scene almost immediately. To be honest, it was quite inconceivable that someone had broken out of the National Class 1 prison for serious criminals. It had to be noted that all the cultivators who had been sent to prison had special sealing spells cast on them, and the handcuffs they wore were also specially made to restrict the output of their abilities. Furthermore, there was a huge sealing array at the bottom of the prison, which had a radius of 10,000 li coupled with the high walls that even an attacking giant wouldn't be able to cross. Breaking out of the prison was simply nonsense. After Secretary Da Kong arrived at the scene, the Cultivation Police Department had already dispatched the Major Crimes Investigation Unit to investigate the situation. The only good news that could be confirmed at the moment was that the criminal hadn't left Songhai City's high-security prison. It was just that the way he had escaped was a little inconceivable. The other party had actually dismantled the steel plate under the bed and used only a fork for instant noodles to forcibly dig out a passage. Chapter 165. It was really inconceivable that an instant noodle fork would actually be able to dig such a long tunnel in a national level 1 prison for serious criminals. With her spirit energy completely restricted, how had the girl managed to break through the heavy reinforced steel plates made from strengthened immortal crystals? That was one problem. After breaking through the steel plates, how had she transported the bricks and soil out? That was another problem. Audiobook arrived not long after Secretary Dakong. When he arrived at the prison, he could clearly feel dizzy. Seeing this, the warden who had been waiting at the main entrance to receive him, hurriedly hung a pendant around Audiobook's neck, and his dizziness was alleviated. "What's this?" The warden explained, "Director Zhua, this is a resistance crystal developed by Wuxia's Cultivation Academy of Science. When you wear it, it can restrict the power of the magic array beneath the prison. Each staff member working in the prison has one." Hearing this, Audiobook nodded. The magic array in the prison was really too powerful. As soon as he stepped in, he almost couldn't breathe, and his overall symptoms were similar to hypoglycemia. Chest tightness, shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, and dizziness. But the serious criminals locked up here not only had to face the suppression of the magic array, but also the restraining power of the special handcuffs on their wrists. Judging from all the conditions, breaking out of this prison was a complete joke. This incident was a little unexpected, but fortunately, we discovered it in time. There are signal transmitters embedded in the prisoner's handcuffs, and according to the signal source, the prisoner is still hiding in the prison. The warden wanted to cry a little. If the prison break was successful this time, he would probably have to directly go GG and go home to retire and farm. Audiobook was directly brought to the crime scene by the warden. Songhai Cultivation Police's major crime investigation team had already arrived, and they all surrounded the entrance to the prison from which the girl had broken out. At first glance, Audiobook saw Secretary Dakong's figure in a windbreaker in the vast crowd. "Little Zhuazi, you're finally here." When the old secretary saw Audiobook, his frown instantly brightened. "It was all thanks to your efforts that we were able to capture this person last time. Audiobook, I already have a basic understanding of the situation. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. If you have any other thoughts, you can also tell me. Everyone here will listen to your commands. We have to do our best to arrest and bring this criminal to justice in the shortest time possible before he actually escapes from prison." The old secretary patted Audiobook on the shoulder. "Little Zhuazi, it's up to you. I believe that if you can catch her once, you can catch her again." Audiobook already didn't know what to say. The most important thing was that he himself was in a state of confusion regarding the previous two situations. "How did she escape?" The old secretary replied, "According to our initial observation, the criminal did use a spoon made from instant noodles to dig a tunnel to escape. Although the tunnel wasn't deep, considering the criminal's identity as a shadow stream killer, he was proficient in the bone-shrinking skill. He could use this small hole to escape. As for the steel plate at the bottom, the prisoner used a corrosive liquid to burn through it." "Corrosive liquid?" Audiobook was astonished. "Isn't there a full-body examination before entering prison? How did he bring it in?" Speaking up to this point, the warden rubbed his temples in pain. "If our guess is correct, the criminal probably hid the tool in his crotch. This is a blind spot for inspection." Audiobook. "Crotch." The old secretary nodded sternly. This speculation sounds a little nonsensical, but it's actually very reasonable. Actually, it's easier to hide things in the crotch. Even a grenade can be hidden there. What's a small bottle of corrosive liquid to it? Audiobook. 2 hours had passed since Zhang Luiying had escaped from the prison cell. The outside world was calm and peaceful, but Songhai's level 1 prison was already in an uproar. No one could say for sure what would happen in 2 hours. The longer it dragged on, the higher the chances that the criminal would actually escape. As a criminal wanted by the vicious assassination organization Shadowstream, there was no guarantee that the other party wouldn't do anything harmful to society if he was allowed to escape from prison. Zhang Luiying had crawled out of a haystack 3 kilometers away from the prison's main building. When she crawled out, she was still holding an instant noodles fork and handcuffed. Tied to the fork was an armor-piercing talisman, which was why Zhang Luiying had been able to dig through the soil as effortlessly as if she were digging pudding. When she broke out of the ground, the effect of the armor-piercing talisman had already disappeared, and the instant the effect of the armor-piercing talisman disappeared, the instant it tragically broke into 2 pieces. Oh, that was right. Zhang Luiying had also taken this armor-piercing talisman out of her crotch. It's all thanks to the escape package elder sister prepared for me. Zhang Luiying held a glass bottle the size of a finger in her hand, which was stuffed with all kinds of hoi poi capsules, which contained all kinds of magic treasures that could be used to escape capture. Zhang Luiying, on the other hand, had kept them in her crotch all this time. Zhang Luiying could have escaped a long time ago, but unfortunately she had been knocked unconscious. By the time she had woken up, she was already in prison. It had taken some time, but fortunately, she had managed to escape in the end. Lying in the haystack, Zhang Luiying stared at the bottle in her hand. She gritted her teeth hatefully and pounded the ground in grief and indignation. Those damn cats and high school students, they made me suffer so much here. Just you wait. Zhang Luiying narrowed her eyes, a hint of malice in them. Her top priority now was to think of a way to escape from here. Zhang Luiying was well aware that although she had escaped from the cell, she hadn't truly escaped the prison. Furthermore, she had a hunch that she was being watched. I have to think of a way to undo these damn handcuffs first. After calming down, the girl stared at the handcuffs in deep thought. These handcuffs were made of stainless steel. The material was very special, and had the ability to suppress spirit energy. Coupled with the restrictive array at the foot of the prison, the spirit energy she could now use was so minuscule that it wasn't even worth mentioning. However, Zhang Luiying still thought of another way. She took out a hoi poi capsule from the glass bottle, which contained the last armor-piercing talisman. Taking it out of the capsule, the girl stuck it to her 36D chest, as if she had cut off all means of retreat. Then she took a deep breath. She placed her hands flat on a rock and tried to put as much distance between them as possible. After that, she lifted her upper body and flung it violently, boom! Chapter 166. In ancient times, there was a chest weapon that could shatter boulders, and today, there was a chest weapon that could shatter shackles. Looking at the shattered handcuffs, Zhang Luiying suddenly felt a sense of heroism in her heart. She felt that she had accomplished an unprecedented feat. The main reason was that this armor-piercing talisman was just too useful. This was an armor-piercing talisman which had been specially drawn by her elder sister, and was more vicious and violent than the ones sold on the market. That was why it could generate enough force to directly shatter the handcuffs. Without the shackles of the handcuffs, Zhang Luiying felt that her spirit energy had recovered significantly. Although the magic array under the prison had the ability to restrict spirit energy, it was still very difficult to control it. But over the past few days, Zhang Luiying had gradually adapted to this kind of oppressive environment. She had 2 golden cores inside her body, which was like having 2 CPUs at the same time. Her spirit energy worked faster than an ordinary person's, and even in such a restrictive environment, she could still exert half of her strength. This had played an important role in her escape from the prison. Without the help of the prison resistance crystal, it would be nonsense for an ordinary felon to escape from the prison's magic array and the handcuffs on their hands. But now, the girl felt that her chances of escaping were much higher. This prison was quite large, and she had just escaped from the main building. His current location was a training area 3 kilometers behind the main building. It was a small forest. It had originally been a place for prisoners to exercise, but now it had become a hiding place for Zhang Luiying to escape. If she dashed out so brazenly now, the prison officers who were already searching nearby would immediately find her. What Zhang Luiying needed to do now was to use the invisibility talisman in the escape package to find the sewer that led outside the prison as soon as possible. Then, while the armor-piercing talisman's effect was still active, she would use the chest weapon to smash a hole in the barrier outside the prison. Otherwise, there was no way she could break through the prison's high walls, which were ridiculously thick. Now that things had come to this, Zhang Luiying had no other choice. If she wanted to escape from here, she could only make one last attempt. In the forest, the girl gritted her teeth, circulated her spirit energy, and stuck the invisibility talisman on her body, then swiftly flew off in one direction. Half an hour later, the prison guards patrolling outside found the broken handcuffs on the ground, and Secretary Sun and Audiobook quickly led a group of people to the scene. When the warden saw the handcuffs that had been reduced to pieces, His heart trembled with fear, and a distressed expression appeared on his face. How did the other party destroy these handcuffs made of special materials under the restriction of the sealing circle and the handcuffs? Since the enemy has the ability to escape, destroying the handcuffs should be expected. Secretary Dakong gazed at the shards of the handcuffs and pondered a little. But what on earth could have such destructive power? Little Zhuozi, do you have any ideas? Adshua was at a loss. The old secretary continued to speculate. The handcuffs of the first-class prisons in the country are all made of extremely dense and pure dark steel. This girl can actually cause such great damage to the handcuffs. This is enough to prove that they must have some kind of weapon of mass destruction on them. Warden, old secretary, do you think that this prisoner will harm the other felons in our prison? That's not it. Secretary Sun shook his head. This girl's #1 goal now is to escape, so the weapon of mass destruction she's carrying is very likely to be used to destroy the prison's high walls or the barrier outside the walls. As soon as he finished speaking, a deafening roar traveled into everyone's ears. The warden held a walkie-talkie in his hand. Hurry up and check. What's that sound? Very quickly, several prison guards on the other end of the walkie-talkie reported, Reporting. We found the target. The target is destroying the barrier. Warden. Then hurry up and subdue the target. Prison guard. Reporting. The target is moving very fast and seems to have used an invisibility talisman. We're using a scanner to locate the target. Warden. After locating the target, immediately seize the weapon and arrest her. Seize? Seize the weapon? Outside the high-class prison's barrier, the girl's figure was exposed under the scanner. A group of prison guards stared at the girl who was holding her chest and smashing the barrier with all her might, and couldn't help falling into deep thought. It was June 4th on Saturday in the 6th week of the semester. When Wang Ling got up in the morning and turned on the TV, he noticed that the same news was being repeated on all the channels. At around 1800 hours last night, a felon from Songhai's high-class prison destroyed the barrier and successfully escaped. Wang Ling was surprised to discover that this girl was actually the person who had been captured at number 59 high school back then. According to the relevant investigation by the cultivation police, it had been confirmed that this girl was in fact the younger sister of the master of Shadow Stream. It was precisely because of this identity that the girl hadn't gone through the judicial process at that time, and had been directly sent to Songhai First Prison to be locked up. Wang Ling calculated carefully that it had already been 3 weeks, or almost a month, since the incident had happened. AI, there are so many prison guards in the prison, but they can't even keep an eye on a girl. The old man sat in front of the TV and drank some vegetable porridge before directly turning it off. Dad, why did you turn off the TV? Father Wang was watching happily, because he realized that this girl's breasts were quite big. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Father Wang was more curious about how this girl had broken out of prison, and wanted to see the follow-up news report. The old man shook his head. Even if the news doesn't continue broadcasting, I can probably guess what's going to happen. Based on the usual news routine, when something this big happens, the relevant department leader will most likely shift the blame to someone else. If you don't believe me, I'll turn it on again for you to see. The old man turned the TV back on. Coincidentally, the news was at the same time that the person in charge of Songhai First Prison was making a statement. Surrounded by cameras and microphones from reporters from all over the country, a prison warden who looked to be in his late 20s had a gloomy expression on his face. I'm very sorry to have caused everyone to worry. Actually, the situation this time isn't as serious as we thought. We've already issued a national wanted order, and we've already found clues leading to the fugitive's escape. We'll immediately organize forces to arrest and bring the fugitive to justice. A female reporter wearing black-rimmed glasses asked, Warden Liang, can you explain the main reason for the fugitive's escape this time? Actually, the mistake this time was that our prison used newcomers. These newcomers aren't very familiar with the job, so when the fugitive was taken into custody in the prison. Speaking up to this point, this Warden Liang lowered his head with a sorrowful expression. Speaking up to this point, this Warden Liang lowered his head with a sorrowful expression. Yes, that's right. All of this is the fault of the temporary workers. Chapter 167. Just like that, the glorious temporary worker was once again implicated. Wang Ling knew that this was a common statement used by the relevant departments in Wuxia nation, just like the strong condemnation and protest of Wuxia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This set of rhetoric had been carefully designed, and it was suitable for all kinds of interview questions. Although the news of the girls' prison break was spreading like wildfire, there were very few news reports about it online. Wang Ling clicked on several news apps, and there were only a few comments on the relevant news reports. It was very obvious that this matter had been suppressed, just like Mother Wang's groping incident last time. Warden Liang had played it down on TV, but Wang Ling had a bad feeling looking at the news reports. His eyelids were twitching again, and this time, the disaster warning was actually 3 stars. Thus, although it was Saturday, Wang Ling was home and didn't go anywhere, he felt uneasy. The frequent twitching of his eyelids gave him a hint of anxiety. What would the jailbreak girl do after she got out of prison? Wang Ling lay on his back on his bed and crossed his arms as a pillow as he thought distractedly. It was clearly impossible for her to seek revenge on number 59 high school and number 60 high school now that she had escaped from prison. Most of the students in the school were on vacation. Even if they came looking for trouble, there were still so many teachers on duty who wouldn't give this shadow stream killer an opportunity to take advantage of. Looking for Wang Ming sounded even more unreliable. Huaxia's top leaders all knew about the grudge between the strongest brain and this shadow stream girl. Once the news of her prison break got out, they would definitely send more people to protect Wang Ming. Then the only person left to swiftly retaliate against in a short period of time was black charcoal. When a person had nowhere to vent their anger, they would naturally look for a soft persimmon to pinch. Wang Ling felt that Zhang Tan was now in a very dangerous situation. Wang Ling turned into a white Persian cat and once again appeared under that old willow tree in number 59 high school. Considering the urgency of the situation, Wang Ling had directly teleported over. Wang Ling carefully sensed his surroundings and realized that it was all quiet and there was no sound at all. He lay down at the mouth of the tree hole and sensed for a moment, but there wasn't the slightest trace of an aura inside. Whether it was the original Chief of Staff, Battalion 1 Commander the Monk, or Zhang Tan's Cavalry Battalion, Infantry Battalion and Air Force, none of them were here. Wang Ling opened his eyes and used the Heavenly Eye flashback spell. The scene in front of him started to flow backward, but he didn't capture any information. This proved that charcoal had left at least half an hour ago. What's more, they had turned out in full force. They brought along all the fellows in the cave and were fully armed. Even the Yadali cannon in the cave had disappeared. Where did they go? He was very worried about Zhang Tan's safety. Through his aura search, he could confirm that Zhang Tan and the others were already far away from Peiyuan district. It had been at least 12 hours since they left the tree hole, which was earlier than he had expected. Now there was only one way to find Zhang Tan. In a mysterious laboratory on the border of Huaxiao Nation, a man in black tights was engrossed in research. In his hands were the blueprints for the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong cannon. Since the laboratory had been destroyed the last time, Little Black had been trying to restore this cannon which he had painstakingly developed. He was waiting for a clue from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, then he would carry the cannon to that bastard's house and directly blow it up. Little Black was in the middle of recalculating the cannon's firing speed when a hand suddenly pressed down on his shoulder, scaring him so much that he trembled all over. Who is it? This time, Little Black saw a youngster in a white short-sleeved shirt standing behind him. You are. Wang Ling directly revealed his identity telepathically. Little Black was astonished. You're Ling Zhenren? This time, Wang Ling didn't have to deliberately disguise his face like last time, because the last time he had been here, he hadn't known about the relationship between Little Black and grenade throwing. Now that he knew that the other party was on his side, there was no need to disguise himself. To verify that he was the real Ling Zhenren, Wang Ling even posted a photo of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Wang Ling had secretly taken it when he had been with grenade throwing. He had taken it to deal with this kind of situation in case he needed it. Looking at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's smiling face in the photo, which was as bright as a chrysanthemum, Little Black's doubts about the youngster's identity were completely dispelled. It was only when he was with Ling Zhenren that this cultivation forum leader would smile like a fool. So it really is Ling Zhenren. My apologies, my apologies. Little Black cupped his fists excitedly. So this was the big shot who was going to help him find that bastard who had destroyed the lab. He actually looked so young. What business do you have with me, Ling Zhenren? Wang Ling didn't beat around the bush, and directly gave Little Black a sketch of Zhang Tan that he had prepared beforehand as well as the specific location of the willow tree. "Can you find it?" When Little Black saw the sketch of Zhang Tan, it instantly dawned on him. It turned out that Ling Zhenren's cat had gone missing. But why had it appeared in this strange location? Could it be that big shots in the cultivation world nowadays like to raise their pets freely? Out of politeness, Little Black didn't ask too many questions. Based on the coordinates Wang Ling had marked, Little Black easily located the willow tree's vicinity and successfully hacked into all the surveillance equipment nearby. This time, Wang Ling finally caught a clue. Zhang Tan and the others had set off at around 8 o'clock last night, and each cat had been covered with an invisibility talisman. As Wang Ling had guessed, they had left the tree hole with all their fellows. It was obvious that they were going to fight a team battle. Wang Ling's heavenly eye could clearly see Zhang Tan's black, confident face through the surveillance cameras. This guy was actually smiling. But what kind of team battle was it that was worth Zhang Tan mobilizing all its forces? While Wang Ling was worried, he was also a little curious. Little Black was indeed Little Black. As a computer network existence that could turn something rotten into a divine weapon, it was able to deduce Zhang Tan's final destination, Songhai Dahuang International Airport, based on just a bit of Zhang Tan's whereabouts when it had set off. Airport. This time, whether it was Little Black or Wang Ling, both of them were utterly shocked. Little Black hacked into the airport ticketing system and investigated all the transaction records for that day. In the end, it discovered a set of rather strange data. After analyzing it, Little Black had an incredulous expression on its face. "Ling Zhenren, your cat is really too powerful. It actually chartered its own plane." Wang Ling was startled by Zhang Tan's actions. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.